For over 6 decades, Bank of Industry has been here, driving Nigeria's industrial development through financial and business support services to micro enterprises, small and medium enterprises, and large enterprises across Nigeria. Leveraging on strategic partnerships, we provide equipment financing, working capital, and support to enterprises in key sectors of Nigeria's economy, including youth and women-led enterprises. Whatever your business needs, starting up, expansion, diversification, modernization, or rehabilitation, we'll be here, always to support you. Bank of Industry, transforming Nigeria's industrial sector.
Now, if you are a Nigerian, I'm sure one of these things must have happened to you before, like forgetting your wallet out,
or not being able to get your full change when you buy something,
or you are unsure of the account you want to make payment into. Then NQR Payment is for you. NQR Payment Solution is a secure QR code-based payments and collections platform to help individuals and businesses, to help buyers and sellers to receive and also make instant payments for goods and services. Now, if you're a customer, here are 4 easy steps to pay sharp with NQR. 1. Sign into your mobile banking app, click on payments, then select QR payment. 3. Scan the unique QR code presented by the merchant. And 4. Confirm the beneficiary name, amount, then input your PIN and the merchant receives its payment instantly. To use NQR for your business, contact your bank. This message is brought to you by the Bankers Club team.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me you're just hearing about the One Bank app by Sterling? Well, let me catch you up before you get cancelled. We are talking about instant account opening, no paperwork required, and no waiting in line to hear a customer service officer say, "Please wait your turn, ma." And check this, I don't have to go to the bank to get a physical debit card because I created a virtual one to help with all my online purchases. I can see I have piqued your interest. Come closer. There's more. I can apply for and get an instant loan on my One Bank app via Spectre. I can also get up-to-date news on what's going on around me. What are you waiting for? Head over to your app store right now and get the One Bank app this minute. Do it now. Register. Open an account.
Falcon Corporation Limited, a leading wholly indigenous midstream and downstream natural gas distribution, LPG trading and storage company, with an unwavering commitment to quality, safety and operational excellence, a world-class sustainable institution and brand with excellent standards of governance, making tangible positive impact on our communities over decades, a strategic partner of choice, delivering value to Nigeria's domestic gas industry since 1994. A visionary organization with bold aspirations for the energy future of Africa. Falcon Corporation. Think gas. Think Falcon.
Some dreams are big. Some dreams are small. Some dream to go from place to place. Dreams of love and ever after. Dreams and sacrifices that builds the future. Whatever the dream or step or journey, you can do more with a partner that cares about your dreams. Access, more than banking. Brother Jumble, why you dey fumble? You no need to dey suffer to send money, oh. Carry phone, make you dial the number 894. Make you know they wait. 894. No need to dey stand for line. 894. It is safe and secure. 894 for me. 894 for you. 894 for there's a number that could change your whole world. 894. It no matter if you no get data. 894. Just pick your phone and dial the number. 894 for me. 894 for you. 894 for Niger.
Dial star 894 hash to get started.
You fast bank.
Shopping online is so easy, but shipping those items to your doorstep can be a hassle. This is why I strongly recommend overseas shipping by GIG Logistics. With the GIG Go app by GIG Logistics, you can ship items from the UK and US to Nigeria and Ghana with ease. The best part, it only takes a few seconds. Let me show you how. Log into the GIG Go app, select overseas shipping, then click send to Nigeria. Select UK or US and copy the shipping address for later. Visit the stores you want to shop from. At the checkout stage, paste the shipping address you copied earlier and complete your transaction. Return to the GIG Go app to create your shipment. Fill your items and delivery details. Upload your means of identification and you're done. Then relax. Your items will be delivered to you in a few days. It's that easy. You should try it today.
Every day is why I love basketball. It's fun, fast paced, and here at PA, I get to play my guys after class. So it's a vibe.
Music makes me happy. My dreams of making music are still alive here in PAU. With these talented friends of mine, we work together in our free time to make magic. Tracks ready, guys.
I'm a businesswoman. I own 2 successful businesses, and here at PAU, the entrepreneurship program has helped strengthen my platform. In the past year, I've generated so much revenue while doing the thing I love. Amazing, right?
The title advice and drop this down so you can start filling that.
Right, good job, Samuel. I've always wanted to be an engineer. Right from when I was young, I've been building things for fun. And now that I'm old, I would love to create solutions that work. That is why I love the top-notch facilities here at PAU. The lecturers and supervisors are amazing, and these light minds challenge me every day.
When it comes to coding, I love the constant challenge to solve problems. That feeling of accomplishment that comes with solving an error never gets old. My course helps me to develop my skills, and in the process, I get to have so much fun.
Channel your energy, pain, sadness, and cut film is my passion. It's how I get to express myself and share my mind with others. I live for the thrill of being able to bring my visions to life. And here at PAU, I'm doing just that. Okay, let's take Team 4 again.
What I've ever on the net, you the scare who? Hey, boss man, me, I know they fear you. You the use your boy hustle the tweets. I can't wait till I buck you when you.
Fashion and influencing are expressions of who I am as a person. Here at PAU, I get to dress in ways that make me confident and create loads of fun content. Okay, you guys, let's make another one.
Force fields, collision, cloth modifier. This is all you need to know to learn physics in Blender. Okay? I'm a 3D artist. I live and breathe art, and my love for art actually stayed alive here in PAU. Solo here inspires me to actually work on my skills. Through this, we teach and challenge each other every day. Let's continue.
Me, I don't get beef with nobody. I put my mind on my money. Bad energy far from me. Yeah.
Oh my god, me and dance are like this. I love being able to express myself and entertain others, and I can do that here at the Euphoria Dance Floor. Okay guys, let's continue.
And that, my friends, is why the economy is declining. I'm a public speaker and I love to inspire and educate through my speeches. Here at PAU, the presentation tasks have helped me to be more confident, and I can see myself on global stages defending great causes.
This is our community,
where we get to live our dreams,
where we get to imagine
and express freely,
where we get to connect with ourselves,
with our friends, and do the things we love,
where we get to train,
to work hard, to hustle,
to grow,
to become leaders,
stars.
This is us.
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 This is us. This is us.
Glenfiddich means Valley of the Deer. And just as a stag loses its antlers each year, we believe in letting down our guard and seeking out uncertainty to embrace the unknown. It's how we go forward, how we grow stronger, and how we make our whiskey. Glenfiddich, where next?
Afternoon to all of you, and a very warm welcome to our third annual conference. This conference is particularly significant to us because this is our 5th year. We've done 5 years, we can't believe it. And it's thanks to all of you who have supported us and everybody who has participated in our programs. Our theme for this year is Going Global. The World is My Village, with 2 panel sessions. One of them is, should we go global? Making the decision, and the second is Going Global, the real story. But before I talk about the conference, I'd like to say a couple of things about Boys to Men Foundation. I'm Ifeoma Itigbe, and I'm the founder and executive vice chairman of Boys to Men Foundation. Boys to Men Foundation is a Nigerian non-governmental organization dedicated to supporting boys and men to become their best selves, and so positively impacts the communities in which they live. Thomas Page McBee writes that we must create a culture where boys are not raised to see masculinity and humanity as mutually exclusive. This embodies our raison d'etre, together with our motto of integrity, leadership, and equity. Our programs are built on 3 pillars: promoting our mission, the publications and productions that support our second pillar, achieving our vision. These are the core programs designed to achieve the changes we seek, for our males to become leaders and their best selves. And the last pillar, our community outreach, supporting the vulnerable in our communities. Let me talk briefly about 2 core programs. Owning My Space Leadership and Life Skills program for male graduates. These are the people who are on the cusp of adulthood and independence to influence their minds, attitudes, and behavior, and effectively impacts the development of society in the 21st century. We currently have approval from the Lagos State NYSC coordinator to run this program with corpus in all the NYSC offices in Lagos State. This way, we can influence thousands of young men. We also run this program as Becoming My Best Self in secondary schools in Lagos. Our monthly conversations or conversations program is run as a participatory and interactive group mentoring platform, primarily for men. It uses the medium of conversations for sharing experiences and coming to shared insights and understandings about individual experiences or events in the lives of participants. The conversations provide a safe space or forum for discussions around the challenges and concerns men have in a group context, for which we also have podcasts and an annual research for which we produce a report. Last year, the research was on depression. This year, it is on drug abuse. We feed 300 children monthly in vulnerable communities as part of our community outreach. Boys to Men Foundation is fully engaged in trying to change limiting social constructs which are damaging to men and to society. We have been able to start and continue our journey because of our sponsors. We owe you all a debt of gratitude. Thank you. Our conference theme for this year is Going Global, The World is My Village. Going global has become a byword in many boardrooms, the idea of building a global brand and expanding frontiers. What does it mean to go global? Must all organizations go global for long-term success? What are the key drivers for going global? Have you done your homework? What are the stories of those who have experience in going global or in global organizations? How did they do it? What strategies did they use? We shall be interrogating these questions during this conference through the keynote address and the panel discussions during our panel sessions. Please remember to write your questions in the Q&A box and also to make your comments in the chat box. I would now like to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Herbert O. Wigwe, FCA-CON. Dr. Herbert Wigwe is the Group Chief Executive Officer of the Access Corporation, an ecosystem orchestrator offering financial products and services for the retail, private, corporate, institutional, and non-institutional sectors in Africa, Asia, and Europe. He was the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer and one of the founders of Access Bank before taking on this responsibility. Our keynote speaker will open the conversation with his keynote address, and the 2 panel sessions will extend the conversation further. Dr. Wigwe is the perfect choice to speak on our 2023 theme because both himself and the corporation he leads are the poster boy and the poster organization for going global. The world is my village. Dr. Wigwe, we'll welcome you to our 2023 conference and thank you for accepting our invitation to speak.
Let me start by thanking Ifeoma Edigwe for providing this invaluable platform for young men to find their voice and contribute to society. In a world where attention is often focused on the empowerment of girls and women, men tend to be neglected. It is therefore important to create spaces and platforms for young men to overcome their daily concerns, grow, strive, and become successful global leaders. Our society today tends to assume that men are capable of handling their vulnerabilities. It creates a culture where expressing emotion or seeking help is viewed as a sign of weakness. Men are often told, be strong. I'm sure that most of us have had this on this platform, must have had the phrase, be a man. By trying to be a man, a lot of young men have had to deal with internal struggles, isolation, and mental health challenges, which I will speak to later. So what you have done with the establishment of Boys to Men Foundation is commendable and invaluable, because it creates a safe space for young men to open up, to express their feelings, and get the assistance necessary for their growth in life. It highlights the importance of and provides an appropriate support system to foster resilience, responsibility, and growth in the lives of young men. It's my pleasure to identify with this noble ideal and to speak to you all today. I'll try to share with you some of my thoughts on some of the challenges we face as young men and how I took advantage of the opportunities that those circumstances presented. Now, according to Galileo Galilei, you cannot teach a man anything. You can only help him discover it within himself. Let me share a little of my own background. I come from a middle-class background. My parents were public servants at that time. The public service, even at the time, employed the very best people. We were 7 children with an extended family of 3 and sometimes 4 children, typical of most African families. All the children, boys and girls alike, went to the same school with the same stipend, and there was little or no room for errors. Now, this taught me at a very young age the importance of having strong family support, growing up together, and having each other's back. There was equality in terms of sharing resources. You may think I was a perfect child. I certainly was not. I was not the easiest of children to bring up. But through spanking, and of course I had a lot of that, and consistent coaching, my parents miraculously got me to focus. My father taught me that I didn't need to be a genius to succeed. You just needed to work extremely hard and remain focused on the goal and trust God to give you a helping hand, which is very important. Someone once said, it is easier to build a strong child than to repair a broken adult, because the foundation laid in childhood shapes the trajectory of a lifetime. When it came to time for me to go to secondary school, even though we lived in the southernmost part of the country, in Port Harcourt at the time, I chose to go to school in the northernmost part of the country. I went to school in Federal Government College Sokoto. Back then, communication was only possible through the mail system, and it's hard to imagine now, I'm sure, but my father trusted me to go that far anyway. He trusted and believed that I had the appropriate value system to guide me in school that far away. I felt very responsible and very important. My father taught me that the only way you could be good at anything is to practice, practice, and then practice some more. I used to tell my children that you don't have to be a genius to excel in any subject. I learned this from my father through his discipline and his sisters upon hard work. As I said, we have always had a large family, and even though we were 6 biological children, there were never less than 10 at home. At one point, we had about 6 children in the university. That's how many of us, my parents had in school at the time. For a public servant, that was difficult. That certainly was not easy for them. And our dad would give us, at the time, 45 naira at the beginning of a 3-month term. By the way, a meal at that time was 50 naira. So it was calculated that 45 naira was for a month, actually, but he gave it to us for a term. And we asked, how long was this for? And he simply smiled and said, just stretch it and stretch it. Let's see how far it goes. And we quickly learned how to live on 2 meals a day. My upbringing taught me that living a productive life is the most satisfying life you can live. If there was a drug called productivity, you need to be addicted to it. Don't work to make money. Work because productive work is your passion. Also, thanks to my father, I have the pursuit of excellence in my DNA. I have the resilience, determination, and focus of a warrior. And that's fortunate because breaking down the walls of impossibility is what leaders do. But I was also fortunate I had parents who spent a lot of time molding me by instilling important values. They were there to pick me up when I fell over. As I developed, I formed friends who also gave me support. And eventually I got married. My wife has been my rock throughout my difficult and challenging times. She has also been proud to witness my successes. And importantly, she has willingly accepted the traditional role of impacting our family values to our children. She has always been present for all of us, providing reassuring support and teaching our children and our extended family important cultural and moral African values. Now, I'm sure you will agree with me that there's been a significant shift in society's definition of equality. Now, I have 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls. As parents in today's world, we tend to pay a bit more attention to our daughters because we perceive them to be more vulnerable than the boys. We inadvertently create imbalances and risk having a negative impact on our male children. We unintentionally tend to neglect the boys. They feel their voices are not valued or heard, and they are left with difficulties in expressing their own emotions. In turn, they do not know how to develop coping mechanisms, nor do they build strong emotional intelligence. This situation creates new unequal, stereotypical gender roles, reduces self-esteem and confidence, and reinforces gender inequality. I am who I am today because of the support system my parents provided. A support system that taught me the importance of integrity, humility, hard work, and compassion. But I must also say here that if you were not as fortunate as me, this does not mean you cannot find success in business and in life. Some of the most abused people in this world find their way through such circumstances and build solid friendships and create the networks and relationships they need to encourage, support, and recognize their own successes. Now, growing up, I had the good fortune of making very good friends. And I said good fortune because I could have ended up in a circle of friends who were unambitious. But this was not the case. As a result, I was exposed to peer pressure early in life. Now, peer pressure can be positive or negative impacts on our lives as young men. Can't it? I mean, I'm sure, people would have seen different balances in the friendships that they've kept. But more often than not, it pushes us to strive for excellence and encourages us to adopt healthy habits and behaviors. When we surround ourselves with friends who are ambitious, disciplined, and focused on personal growth, the influences can inspire us to set up higher goals and make responsible choices. They help us to learn more from one another, exchange ideas, and build each other up. Now, talking about choices, the choices we also make as young men have profound impacts not only on our lives, but also on the lives of people around us. Our choices shape our character, determine our path, and influence the opportunities that come our way. For example, even 2 identical twins with the same upbringing would have significantly different life outcomes just because of a slight difference in the choices either of them has made. The decisions we make can also set us on a trajectory towards success or failure. When we choose to prioritize personal growth, education, and skill development, we lay a strong foundation for success. By investing in ourselves and continuously learning, we equip ourselves with the knowledge and skills needed to excel in our chosen fields. The dedication and discipline we demonstrate in pursuing our goals creates a ripple effect and inspires others to do the same. This fosters, of course, a culture of ambition and achievement. On the other hand, when we make choices that prioritize short-term gratification or instant gains at the expense of long-term growth, we limit our potential and hinder our own success. Indulging in destructive behaviors, neglecting responsibilities, or failing to take advantage of opportunities can also have lasting consequences. Having a network of friends who share similar values provides a sense of belonging, reduces feelings of isolation, and enhances overall well-being. Now, in my journey through life, I'm not sure I would have been able to achieve so much without mentors. Mentors offer guidance and wisdom. They play a crucial role by sharing their knowledge and experiences, helping us to navigate through various aspects of life. They offer valuable insights, perspectives, and act as sounding boards for our ideas and aspirations. They offer constructive feedbacks, helping us to identify areas for improvement. All of these things foster personal growth, help build confidence and self-esteem, and provide you with the strength needed to take accountability for your choices and for your actions. Someone once said that behind every successful young man is a network, guidance, and belief in his potential. You must seek these out for yourselves. And Boys to Men is an excellent starting point. All of these things give me the confidence, the drive, and shared determination to create what is today the largest bank in Nigeria and a global financial powerhouse together with my partner, which has a presence in across 14 countries, across the continent, Europe, and the Middle East. So you're probably asking yourself, how did I start? I've graduated 3 times and the 4th time more recently from 3 different institutions. I remember thinking each time that I was one more step forward, one more step towards a goal that back then I hadn't even visualized. But I felt I was moving forward, and that's what mattered. It will be several years before I envisaged building a new bank for Nigeria. A bank of scrupulous ethics, a bank that would help grow Nigeria's economy, a bank that would give Nigerians a much better life. I studied accounting at University of Nigeria, and that was in the 80s. And it was an interesting thing to watch bond trader Michael Milken at that time, because that was an era of junk bonds. I liked the energy and adventure that came with it. And I thought accounting and finance, would be a great part of, achieving what I wanted to do. So when I qualified as a chartered accountant and left Cooper's, I was then working as a management consultant. In the late 80s, I then moved into investment banking. At that time, there were about 100 banks in Nigeria. And these banks were created, to see how they could support the growth and development of financial services and, of course, economic development. I left to work for one of those new entrepreneurially run banks, believing it would expose me to greater responsibilities. Of course it did. But what it did that is everlasting in my mind is that it taught me how not to run a bank. The bank failed because of weak governance and risk management issues. But I remained resolute in my desire to be a part of a team that will create a strong and successful bank. And so after my degree in development economics, when I went to do my master's, and subsequently financial economics, so I came back after completing my postgraduate program. I started working for a bank called Guaranty Trust Bank, and it was a startup bank as well at the time. I worked there for 12 years and became an executive director. I worked with the founders to build what was one of Nigeria's and Africa's best financial institutions. And in 2002, my partner and I, driven by our entrepreneurial skills, which we believed were well honed, decided to acquire a bank and create another oasis of sanity as far as banking was concerned. So Access Bank was acquired, and we set ourselves the vision of being the world's most respected African bank. We were 67 out of 80 banks at the time, and therefore one of the smallest in the country. It was clear to us that the only way to survive was to pursue both an organic and an inorganic growth strategy. Now, there's an old adage that says, show me your friends and I will tell you who you are. Don't forget, your friends would most certainly make significant impact on your life and would likely determine your success or failure. We have made many friends along the way, a combination of positive peer pressure, mentors, and values which we held dear to us and which gave us the impetus to succeed. Very early, we partnered with the FMO, which is the Dutch equivalent of the IFC, and the IFC, who not only invested in us, but at this time started sharing issues around sustainability with us. Some of these issues will become very challenging in our environment because we began taking them on very quickly and became champions of gender empowerment and other aspects of sustainability. Now, as Africans building a great institution within the continent, we had to follow things that were clear to us. And we didn't have to just keep replicating what was seen in the Western world. But creating wealth for us, whilst being important, we felt that creating value was indeed even more critical. So apart from being champions in ESG, we wanted to contribute meaningfully to the development of our country and the African continent. And we had to do many things that impacted the emotional fabric of our people. We also realized that we needed to retell the African story to the rest of the world. For the rest of the world needed to be updated on how they had viewed the continent. So we started several initiatives. In 2016, we partnered with Lagos State government to host the maiden edition of the Access Bank Lagos City Marathon, which is now an annual event. It's aimed at providing strategic support in areas of sports whilst promoting healthy and active living through fitness and exercise to the Nigerian economy. We started the UNICEF Charity Shield Polo Tournament, which is one of our most prominent initiatives designed to drive development in the communities we serve. Now, the tournament was designed to raise awareness of the plight of vulnerable children and orphans, especially the internally displaced persons scattered across northern Nigeria. That school today hosts about 14,000 children who are picked up from the streets. Perhaps one of them will become president in Nigeria one day. In 2017, we launched the Employee Volunteering Awareness Day and launched the Save Today, Take Tomorrow campaign, which is focused on driving financial inclusion. These and several other initiatives have helped to change the worldview of Africa. They also emotionally connected our institution to the rest of the world. I will encourage you all to focus on something much bigger than yourselves. Find a cause or causes and fight for them. Build a business that aims to create value to people, your community, and your country. Let me now address some critical factors for you to think about if you have your sights set on developing a successful business. First of all, none of our initiatives would have happened without the amazing group of people I call our Access Warriors. And I'll speak to that in itself because Access Warriors do represent a peer pressure on us as well. And for even some of us who are very senior, it has introduced a whole lot of learning into our lives. So I got my 4th degree as a lawyer just from the peer pressure of continuous learning within Access Bank. But speaking about the business, our numbers have grown exponentially over time. And as a leader, somehow you must decide how, when, and where, and how you will communicate to your staff. For them, you are the end of the road. And they will always look to you for recognition, for reassurance, and for strong leadership. At the beginning of 2016, as we were battling with declining oil prices and stringent economic growth, staff were visibly worried about the future. News was already filtering in about competitive institutions laying off significant number of staff of their workforce to reduce operating costs. There were uncertainties about economic and fiscal policies, currency volatility, as stiffer competition from lower cost or from low-cost liabilities created a perceived shaky environment. So staff had low morale and were concerned about their job security. I confronted our concerns openly. I gave a speech to all staff, turning everyone's attention to the inherent opportunities in the midst of the uncertainties. I told them that this is the time we've been waiting for to take tomorrow. No better time than now. And I explained our strategies very carefully. Told everyone what they had to do and gave them timelines. That we had to become one of the top 3 banks in Nigeria by the end of 2016. But I ended my speech with this quote from Shakespeare, that there is a tide in the affairs of men, which when taken at the flood, leads to great fortune. And if omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in shallows and in miseries. And on such a full sea are we now afloat. And we must take the current when it serves or lose our ventures. And our destiny is in our hands. At times like this, you must lead decisively. You must show your staff your absolute commitment to the possibilities that await. Staff left that meeting inspired, invigorated, and fully charged to seize the opportunities. Our first quarter results showed impressive growth in all our financial metrics beyond the imagination of our competition. So you must motivate those around you to fight the fight with you. You must lead and motivate by communicating with your staff. And you can never accomplish big things alone. Your staff must be as excited by the business and its opportunities as you are. But this will only happen if you share your passion, your excitement, and the guidance you give to them. It is also well known that people love to be a part of something much bigger than themselves. You must nurture this and share the organization's challenges and successes with your people. The most successful organizations in the world have people with a passion for the business they are in. They are proud to be instrumental in its success. I can assure all of you that none of these achievements would have been mine had I not been resilient and had I not chosen excellence many years ago. The important word here is chosen. And I spoke about making choices earlier. Now, it was Aristotle who said, excellence is never an accident. It is always the result of high intention, sincere effort, and intelligent execution. It represents the wise choice of alternatives. The choice, not chance, will always determine your destiny. And never, ever compromise on your values. To borrow from the words of Gandhi, and I'm sure you've heard this several times, your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny. Now, let me share some final thoughts with you. Some of you may be sitting here thinking and concerned that you don't have a clear picture of where you're headed. Don't be. It's always said that life is always a journey. But my friends, careers are journeys too. And it starts from the first step. Any leader will tell you of the battles and challenges they fought along the path of achievement. Of course, these include personal struggles such as depression, mental health, challenges, and the fear of failure. But in the middle of all of this pain lies your opportunity. I would advise you all to speak up. Build a support system. Prioritize your self-care. Maintain a healthy lifestyle. Cultivate meaningful connections and networks. And invest in your self-development. Commit all of your affairs finally to the Almighty. Don't be discouraged if the success you expect doesn't come early. Every setback is a lesson designed to make you ultimately better. Acquiring knowledge is a lifelong journey. It will lead to wisdom and judgment, but it will never end. As they say, tough times don't last, but tough people do. In our times, we must embrace technology. Technological advancements provide endless opportunities for innovation, to dare to go where no one has ever been before. And if I must say that in the last 10 years, through technology, mankind has known more about himself than from the beginning of mankind to 10 years prior. Technology has transformed the way we live, work, and communicate. Through the power of technology, we can become not just local participants, but global players. It offers us the opportunity to collaborate across borders. It has turned your village into a vibrant, accessible, and connected environment. While everyone is contemplating whether something is achievable or not, you can just jump into the trenches and beckon on others to follow. So build friendships, hang out with like-minded people, leverage organizations like Boys to Men, set your sights on what you want to do to make a difference and go for it. Today, you must do what others want so that tomorrow you can do what others can't. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much, Herbert, for that exposition. It was more than a keynote address. It was an exposition. And I like the various comments and points you made. The fact that there's a foundation to be laid before any other thing. And you really talked about it from the point of view of family, the idea of values, habits, networks and friendships, a support structure, lifelong learning, the idea of choices. And I think very often we don't pay enough attention to the choices we make. We think sometimes that those choices don't matter, that we can always correct them. And sometimes it takes a really long time to correct. So thank you very much for that. And I also like what you said about the vision and about not being afraid to go where others won't, because that is what you do when you're going to make a change in the world. So I have a couple of questions that I'd like to ask. The first is a simple one. Why finance and banking? Why did you start with finance and banking? Where's, I can't see. I need, let me just find out where you are. What is it to be a man? To strive, to decide, the final say yours, unchecked, unfettered by primitive constraints. What is it to be a man? To stand, to speak, to do, not to do, to look upon faces holding their breath, awaiting your wisdom. What is it to be a man? To work, to struggle, to make ends meet, to fight, to lose, to fight, to win, to fight, unending fights. What is it to be a man? Unsure, yet bold, fearful, yet strong, uncertain, working, seeking, trying to be a man. I can't tell when you're unhappy, you always look so composed. I can't tell when you're happy, you always look so calm. I can't tell when you're angry, you always look so controlled. I can't tell when things are bad, you speak in such an even tone. I can't tell when things are great, you always are so cautious. Who are you that I don't know? What secrets does your heart hold? Who do you tell these things you keep from me? This I know so true. Stories sometimes are told with sighs, with eyes, with gesture, not the language of words. Joys so profound, felt in silent stillness. Sadness and grief so quiet, a burdening of the soul. Don't forget to tell your children the stories in your heart, that they may tell their children, and remember, when you are gone, a man called by your name once walked upon this earth. We can change anything. Our minds make what they will of circumstances. Our relationships constantly change in rhythms. Social constructs, man-made roles and rules order our lives. We get it wrong, striving to get it right. We can change everything. Let each, male and female, labor as one. Life, a shared cause. Let old mindsets holding sway give way. Roles defined by need, by circumstance, not by gender. A shared world, change, the only certainty.
I don't know if I'm audible now. Sorry, we do have to.
Yes, you are. You are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Poma. Thank you.
Okay, so I was asking, why finance?
Okay, let me just share with you why finance. First of all, you know, at the time, parents wanted their children to read law, medicine, or engineering, those typical courses. Unfortunately, I was one of those children who did not want to do what their parents had just come out to suggest. My mother had an uncle who was an accountant and who was considered successful at the time. But apart from that, just reading normal books and seeing what was happening, junk bonds had come into the market. And I got extremely interested by what was happening and what was leading corporate takeovers at that particular point in time. I did not have as much information as I wanted, but I thought finance was going to take me in that general direction. Obviously, this was before Milken had his problem. All right. So he was seen as a superstar in what he was doing and was revolutionizing all of those things. So that made a positive impact in me. And that was how I got into accounting and finance. My parents were wondering, why did you choose to study what you wanted to study? And I told them that was where my interest was, and they allowed me.
I think it was also good that you did management consulting, because that gives you a really broad view. Somebody has asked, what are your greatest fears?
My greatest fears?
Yes, your greatest fears as a man, and then when you started work in relation to your work.
So for me, the greatest fear I always had was the fear of failure, and it drove me through life. First of all, even as a professional, when we started working, the thought that I could not accomplish something was a big problem. And I say this more with respect to banking than even with accounting, all right? And when we started our professional careers, we had mentors who had a big dream and shared that dream with us. The thought of not achieving that dream with them was in itself a massive problem. I've had people ask me, how did you form your work ethics? How do you work from 8 o'clock till 2 a.m. every day of your life? And I've told them that, look, this was how I started because this was what was necessary to succeed at the point in time if you channel your efforts properly, all right? And that is the only way I've known how to live. But this has come from that fear that if you don't succeed, all right, you would fall into some bottomless pit, because I only worked with entrepreneurial people when I started my life's career. Yes.
Okay. Now, what were the failures that you found most profound, and how did you get over them?
So I'll share with you a couple. Now, when I left, I started my secondary school education in Federal Government College, Sokoto, like I mentioned. And my parents changed my school 3 years after, when you had the elections coming up, the Shagari elections, and took me to Warri. Now, Federal Government College Warri was, unlike Federal Government College Sokoto, was more within the town, and you were more exposed to all sorts of things. So we finished our school certificate, and I did not get admission to the university I wanted to, and for the course I wanted. That was a massive blow to me. Now, I had excellent results when I was in Sokoto, which was far removed from home, but Warri was a totally different place. Now, that left a terrible impression on me, the fact that I couldn't get what I wanted, in terms of going to the university I wanted to go to, whilst my colleagues who I kept in touch with, the Federal Government College Sokoto, had gotten to where they wanted to go to. Now, unlike most people, rather than sit down and sob, I spent, and by the way, I got admission to university to Ife to study actuarial science, but not what I really wanted. So I had to go back into a remedial class. That remedial class was again in Sokoto. I told my parents I wanted to go back to the same environment, and I came out a totally different person. Now I'm taking you much early in life. I think that as I've grown through time in my professional career, I've never seen a situation that I've not succeeded so far. All right, because quite frankly, we've gotten better and better in the planning, in the visioning, in making sure we have the right tools and resources, in making sure we have the right people who motivate you. Sometimes you think you're going to fall off the cliff, but somebody pulls you back in, and it could be somebody that reports to you, if you get the point I'm trying to make. Yes. So if you like, after that, I've not had such a major problem. But have I had big punches that have almost killed me? The answer is absolutely yes. All right. And when those punches have come, I promise you, there's only one place I've fallen back to, which is God.
Yeah. In fact, somebody says, what's the turning points that you consider had the most impact in your life? Just following on from that.
Okay. So the first was in the acquisition of Access with my partner.
Okay.
It was a very testing experiment. We knew we had the skills. We knew we could run a bank. But, just going through the regulatory process and pursuing it to get the approvals was tested. And at any point in time in that journey, anything could have happened to us. If, for instance, we didn't get the approval of the regulators, we're done for because we had borrowed everything that we had in life. And I'm talking of whether it's a central bank or it's a stock exchange, etc. But you know the naivety of a 33-year-old who is about to do something crazy. I'm not sure that if I was to do it today, I'll go through the same process. But at that point, we just felt that everything was on the table and we had to take it all the way through. So that was a major turning point. Now, when we got in, within the first 2 years, we met on yet another obstacle, all right, which was the change in capital, which was the increase in capital from $20 million to $250 million. There was nobody our size at that time who survived. They all died, okay? Now, and for most people, they thought we're not going to make it as well. We had to do everything humanly possible within the books to make sure that we succeeded. And that put us under phenomenal pressure. And trust me, something will always give in these things. Your health will take its toll on your health. Let nobody deceive you. It's never going to be an easy journey. We met everybody who knew us in life to support that whole endeavor. But as soon as we went through that hurdle, again, things opened up. Now, there's been several others. I mean, and of course, the most recent was what we did with Diamond and all of that. But those are all within the context of Nigeria.
Yes.
When you start going outside of Nigeria, then you start seeing the real hurdles. Then you know that you're not European. Then you know you're not American. Even if you carry an American passport, you're passporting. Then you know there's something called discrimination on earth. Then you know that people may not truly like you the way you think. And as you get into those regulatory environments, you come under more inquisition than you've ever seen in your entire life. All right. And sometimes it can actually bring down the entire franchise. Yeah. But again, if you're well prepared for these things, if you have the right partners, you will break through it. But you will always know that these storms will still come. But the more you overcome, all right, the bigger you get. Some people will say it gets easier. That's not exactly true. The next one coming is going to be stronger. But again, that's what it takes to create a world-class institution.
Okay, thank you. Somebody has asked a question about, you talked about friendships, making the relevant friendships. And the person says, supposing you want to make those friendships so the people don't want to be your friend, which is valid. And a question I'll add to that is this, or a comment I'll add is that I often think that men are their greatest, what will I call it, enemies, if you like. How do you get men to be willing to mentor other men effectively, to make the time?
Yeah, I don't think it's as difficult as they think. And I don't think you would want a mentor and he will deliberately not want to mentor you. I think if you reach out to people politely, all right, normally as a regular person, and you cultivate the right friendships, it will happen. It may not happen immediately. And there's no one person who can determine your destiny, by the way, just in case you want to know, all right? But you keep seeking people who would have a positive influence on your life. I mean, I can tell you tons and tons of people who have influenced me and have influenced me positively. Some older, all right? And the best thing about the older friends was that because they were at a different stage in their lives, their priorities were different from people who were in their 20s. So you grew up faster. Now, there were those who were your age mates. My partner, Ike, is a massive influence on my life, all right? And I'm sure I have the same impact on him. I wouldn't take a decision without even thinking about calling him. What do you think about this? I have colleagues who are junior to me who have made me go to school, if you get the point I'm trying to make. So all of these things come together. Now, let me tell you how far you go sometimes. As our institution grows bigger, there is no institution our size like this to learn from in Nigeria in banking. So you go internationally and you tell people, look, can I partner with you? Can I understand how you do things? Some may just say, look, I don't think I want to partner with this person, but you will find one who will partner with you. And it has happened to us time and time again. Each time you do that, and if you are properly introduced, it will have a positive impact. Now, I think men actually do have a positive impact on themselves. If you're open enough to share your vulnerability, that, look, this is what I'm suffering from, and I need you to help me. How did you solve the problem? And it starts from basic things like things in your personal life, all right? If you can share that level of detail with them, all right? Oh, this is what is happening to my family life, right down to business. And you would always find somebody in the spectrum who would be able to step out and share with you. In the course of doing my job, and which takes a lot of my time. I'm shocked as to how much of people's personal lives I find myself into and how much I share with them. All right, because these are people who spend so much time in the office, but they have a personal life that they need to manage. If you get the point I'm trying to make.
Yes, I do.
So they sometimes ask, look, I don't need my marriage to fall apart. All right.
Yes.
How have you managed this situation? And I share with them and they come back different. And sometimes it's even me asking, you know, am I spending a disproportionate amount of my time at work? Am I not paying attention to my family? And, you know, all of these discussions at the end of the day enable you to create a balance that is required for you to succeed.
Okay, thank you. Now, other questions. Somebody says, and it might appear to be obvious, but maybe it's not so obvious. How can someone know they're being productive and not just being busy?
The results will speak for it.
But do they know the results that they should be getting is the other part of the question.
No, so the first thing in everything you do is to ask yourself, what do I want to achieve? Yeah. If I'm starting something totally different now, I'm setting up a university, and I've never been in academia, all right? But I know exactly what I don't really want to do. Mm-hmm. And I know I want to create an entrepreneurial environment that will make sure that you create a sustainable economic arrangement out of academia. As I speak to people, all right, those who are taking me in the wrong direction, if you get the point I'm trying to make,
yes,
the traditional academic, this thing, I know that, okay, this is fine, all right, for the bread and butter, this is fine, all right, as far as education is concerned. But I'm also beginning to find those who have their minds attuned to the other part of it. So you have to start with that end in mind, as Stephen Covey will tell you. What do I want to achieve? What would success look like for me? All right. And once you can do that, you can then start building, because it is what success is that means that is the definition of productivity for you.
Absolutely. Now, as we're talking about education, how did you choose to do degrees in these different areas? Finance, law, masters in this, PhD in that. How did you, what motivated all of that? You could have continued just one line, but why did you decide to do degrees in different areas?
So the one that took me out of the traditional, I mean, the first degree was in accounting, finance, development economics. So if you like, those are similar, if you like.
Yes.
But law was very interesting. I ran into, if you want to know the truth, I ran into a regulatory issue at one point in my life. And I realized that whilst I was communicating, if I was a lawyer, I wouldn't have been treated in the manner in which I was treated. Because, you know, at that same place, my friend who was a lawyer was treated differently. So whilst being interrogated, I was a bit concerned and nervous about what was happening rather than going through the process with them. So right after that whole program, right after that whole inquisition, I told myself, this can never happen to me in my lifetime again. So I went and studied law. So it's a massive difference in your thought process, definitely. You can be a finance person. Law changes your perspective to life, all right? And for me, it's a big, big change. I can be discussing something commercial with you, but for every word you say, I have an interpretation for it in my mind, you know? Yeah. But when you're doing business in a country like Nigeria or in an emerging market, you can run into significant problems. It is, having a strong knowledge of the law is extremely important for you to be able to fight through all of those things.
And which makes the point also that when you go, so when you went global, as it were, how did you deal with the legal requirements in those places that you went to? Because what you're describing is making lemonade with lemons in many ways. And so, you know, how, when you go to those countries that are not your space, how do you make lemonade with lemons that you find there?
Well, you have to use the lemons you find in those places, if you like. So you would use the best advice. But the interesting thing is that as you move, you know, across the world, there is standard, there is best practice, if you get the point I'm trying to make.
Yes.
And it is easy to understand if there is something that you should not be trusting of. Let me put it that way. Okay. Yes. So it has helped us. We've run into problems internationally as well, and the knowledge of the law was important. All right. And it's not just about people advising you. It's also you having read law, understanding what they are saying. All right. And I'm not talking of as a layman, just understanding. You understand to the most specific detail. You may not be at the same level of competence, but it is clear to you exactly what is being said. It's important. It's important. I mean, I never knew I would find it's this useful in my life. Forget all the reading that was involved, but I think, it's a perfect combination with what I did initially.
And then a question, somebody says, how do you find balance in your career, in your personal life, and God? You've mentioned God a number of times, and it is clear that your approach to things that happen to you is that if it happens, there's a reason for it. So let's look for that reason, let's move on and sort of overcome by understanding the reason and the necessity for the challenge. So how do you find balance in all of these things in your life with God?
Okay, so let me start by saying that, there are people who think that God is just, that there's nothing like that. I am very clear in my thought process that my faith, my future, my destiny, and all of that, I put firmly in the hands of God. All right. And I've read several books. You can even read letters that were written by the king of Belgium to missionaries when they went into Congo. All those things can affect your thought process. But you must believe in something, and I believe in God, if you understand what I'm saying. All right, and it works for me. Now, life is about making choices and about achieving this balance and making sure that all of these different stakeholder groups work for you. All right. So when I entertain at home, all right, my wife knows I'm entertaining. If you get the point I'm trying to make, I try to make sure it is fun for everybody. All right. When my children were much younger and I do spend lots of time in the office, I would bring them to the office so that I'm busy doing some work while I'm doing what I'm doing. All right. All of those things try to ensure that there's a balance. So because I enjoy what I'm doing, I am in a healthy balance for the better part. Yeah. Now, that is not to say that sometimes you don't have, the wife screaming, wait a minute, is it all about work and all of that? You will have to learn to straddle and create that time from time to time. But the more you stay in these relationships and the more they get they buy into what you're doing, all right, the easier it is for you to have that balance. So it's about making sure that everybody understands what you're doing, understands what you're creating, getting their buy-in. And trust me, it's not that difficult. I mean, those problems that would happen early in marriage in the first 10 years, the more you get onto it, it's never a problem by the time you're doing your 25th year and all of that, because people now have an understanding and you've shared with your family what you're creating. Now, for children, it gets even more interesting because you may have convinced your spouse may understand, but you need to understand that children do need time, all right? Their mothers do spend a bit more time than us on the average, but you also have to create that time for them and to get them to understand and buy in, all right? How do they start understanding that you cannot make it for their half term or you've never been to their university, if you get the point I'm trying to make? Very, very difficult. But you must create formal and informal sessions. I do have formal meetings with my children, all right? Real formal meetings, and we know what we're speaking about during that period. And you must have informal arrangements so that by the time they're in their late teens, early 20s, quite frankly, they do have a clear understanding of where the family is headed and they have a buy-in as to what everybody's doing.
So if I say God and success, what would you say?
God first.
If I use those two words, God and success.
God first, then success.
How do you hear God?
How do I hear God? It pricks your conscience. You know what is right and what is wrong. You will know.
Okay. Two last questions. Somebody is asking, what would you have done differently 20 years ago? What is the legacy you want to leave? And then there's this last question as well about if you have education but no skills, can you still do business? So 3 questions right there. What would you have done differently 20 years ago? What legacy would you like to leave? And if you have a high level of education but no skills, can you still do business?
Okay, so 20 years ago, what would I have done differently? I'm not sure that much. I think perhaps with my older children, maybe I'd have spent just a bit more time, I think. I think I was privileged and fortunate that their mother spent enough time to mold them. But I think if I had spent a bit more time, it could have been ideal. But touch wood, they've come out the way they should. Okay, that's what I would have done a bit differently 20 years ago.
What about business? In business? Sorry? What about in business?
In business, I think I had my head screwed on tight properly from day one. I don't think I'd have done anything different. I spent as much time. I had the right people around me. I had the right support framework. So as far as business is concerned, quite frankly, I don't think I'd have done anything different. And by the way, I'm one of those people who believes that, look, just choose what you want to do. And if you apply yourself to it, you will do well. We all don't have to do the same thing. If you're a medical doctor, if you do medicine properly, you will do well. Not everybody has to do a liquors refinery, if you get the point.
Yes.
So if you are a judge, please be a judge, a Supreme Court judge. After God is a Supreme Court judge. He may not be as wealthy as another person. So just define what you want to be in life and pursue it to the end. So this was the route I chose. All right. And I think, quite frankly, I'm doing it to the best of, exactly as I wanted to have done it. Now, in terms of legacy, I think that a lot can be done differently in our country. I think that the educational system is a disaster. I think that we're not producing the nature of people we need to change the country. And I'm not just talking in terms of education, I'm talking in terms of mindset. When you interview people and you hear their perspective to the future and where their minds are centered on, all right, not even on their values, you get extremely worried. So I want to create, to me, a university or an educational platform that can revolutionize education in Nigeria and that can create truly fearless children or a fearless generation that can transform our continent. We are not from another country, irrespective of what passport you carry. You are Nigerian, all right? And if you are fortunate to be living somewhere else, you will get to a glass ceiling very quickly. Then you will know that it is better to build at home. And the only way we can do it is to have the right set of people with the right training, the right drive, who can muster the confidence to convert and change our country. So for me, that is the most important thing. And I think education is at the heart of it. Now, can you be educated without the skills to do business? Look, I'll give you several examples. If you've spent time with people who are educators, they're not business people, but they are some of the most influential people in anybody's life. All right. All you need to do is to go back and ask about that lady who taught you math or English, if you get the point I'm trying to make. So you can be educated and you can impact knowledge on others without doing business. Not everybody is cut out to be a business person, if you get the point I'm trying to make. Being a business person requires a totally different type of skill. It requires understanding. Your interpersonal skills may be different. Your social skills may be different. But you can be an educator without being a business person and still be as impactful through life, perhaps even more, if you get the point I'm trying to make, than doing business. So I think you need to find where your interest is, where your predisposition is, and basically plunge yourself into it.
Thank you so much, Herbert. This has been really interesting. And you've gone way beyond, but in a sense, without these foundational things, there's no going global. Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Kuma. I hope I was helpful. Thank you.
Extremely so. Thank you. We could go on and on with the questions, but there's a timing thing. Thank you very much, Herbert.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. So, once again, thank you, Dr. Wigwe, for starting the conference on a high note. We'll go straight into our first panel session. Our first panel discussion explores the theme around taking the decision to go global or not. Should we go global? Making the decision. This is a crucial decision to go global or not. The future of the organization hinges on taking the right decision. What should the considerations be? To discuss this are Mr. Deremi Atonda, the Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer of Remitter Payment Systems Limited, a leading African payment technology company with head office in Nigeria and a member of the System Specs Group. Mrs. Uju Uzo Ojinaka is the founder and CEO of Traders of Africa, TOFA, a Pan-African online marketplace for products grown, produced, and manufactured in Africa, and African Trade Invest, the Pan-African digital trade and investment company for African trade. She's also the Director of Finance, Marketing and Admin at the Benny's Group Limited, a trading company. Ms. Aisha Bashir is the founder and CEO Cam Dairy Foods Limited, one of Nigeria's first scalable pastoralist-driven dairy producers. Cam was established in 2019 to put in place the infrastructure needed to turn Nigeria from a net importer to a net producer of milk, all anchored around pastoralist communities. Mr. Selika Edigbe, a strategy consultant and coach working in New York, is the moderator for this first panel session. Selika Edigbe is the director at Next Street, New York. As part of the advisory practice, he supports the provision of strategic advisory services to help Next Street clients deepen their impact on the small business ecosystem. We welcome you all to our 2023 conference and look forward to what promises to be a really engaging conversation. I will now hand over to Selika, who is also my son, to moderate this session. Thank you.
Right. So good afternoon, everyone. I mean, I think it is, in fact, afternoon. So it must be maybe 2 p.m. in Nigeria right now. It is 9:11 a.m. for me here in New York. So still an early morning, but I just want to welcome everyone into the space. Jeremy, I just want to invite you onto the camera before we get started here. I still see that you are on mute and off camera. So I just want to give you a minute or so to just get online. Awesome. Welcome in. Welcome in. Awesome. So, awesome keynote and really great questions. I'd love to see that everybody who is in attendance is really engaged. I've seen a lot of questions in the chat. So before we get started with this part of the conversation, I just want to remind everyone that the Q&A is open for you. As we go through this conversation, we should have, 60 to 90 minutes for this conversation. As we go through the conversation, just want to welcome all of your questions in the Q&A. To the extent that the Q&A questions are coming in and they are relevant to the part of the conversation that we are at, I'll certainly be bringing those questions in. But after our first, 60 or so minutes, we'll have a little bit of time for questions and answers as well. So if I don't get your question in throughout the flow of the conversation, don't worry, I'll certainly get it in once we get past the initial panel discussion. Okay. So I wanted to get us started here, and we're going to sort of take this in a couple of different phases. So I'll invite the panelists to introduce themselves a little bit, have a couple of minutes there, and then we're going to define this notion of going global. I think that we can think about this in many different ways. So we'll actually spend some time defining it. Then after that, we're going to open into a sort of a round robin where we'll have a couple of different questions for panelists to really engage with and go back and forth with, right? All this time, again, wanting to make sure that we're inviting everyone to ask some questions in the Q&A. As we wrap up, each panelist will have an opportunity to just share some advice, right? What are some of those next steps? What are those critical pieces that folks need to think about as we sort of think about this idea of going global? Okay, so that being said, I want to get started. So a couple of things we want to grapple with in this introduction here. So if you could just spend some time introducing yourself, a little bit about you, background, your company, and of course, critically here, why is this topic of going global important to you today? What is it that has brought you into this conversation? And I will start. I mean, if anyone wants to volunteer to come off mute and just go ahead, the space is yours. If not, I will call on you.
I can jump in. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Aisha Bashir. I'm the founder and CEO of a dairy company called Cham. Mr. Dube made a quick intro to tell you a bit about what my company does. But I'll quickly talk a bit about why going global matters to me and the business that I lead. So Nigeria imports about 60% of the dairy we consume in the country, right? And my business is trying to see how we can harness our potential and the cows we already have in our country to be able to produce our own dairy, right? And I'm sure everybody is aware of all the challenges around foreign exchange and with Nigeria's deficit. And one of the reasons is because Nigeria imports a lot of things, including matches, I have you believe. So in that idea, the question is, how do we produce things that we need ourselves instead of relying on imports? And the idea that going global can happen for many reasons, but I think it's really important to ask ourselves what those reasons are and what those trade-offs are that we're making when we decide to go global. So really excited to be here and looking forward to having this discussion.
So thank you so much, Aisha. Appreciate that perspective. Excited to really think about some of those pieces. So Jeremy, Uju, whoever would like to come in, please come on in.
Okay, thank you. Let me go and maybe Uju will join. Thank you again, Osaloka. How close is New York? Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now.
Okay, right. Thanks and good afternoon to everyone in the room. If you're on this side of the planet, I know we're talking about going global. It's possible there are different people like Osaloka who are still in the morning belt. I run Remita Payment Services Limited, and that's just everything payments technology for individuals, for businesses, for fintechs, for banks, for governments in Nigeria and across Africa and to the other parts of the world. So we're essentially a payments business. And if you're in this part of the world and we've not touched you in one way or the other, you can expect us to touch you live soon. And that's just part of going global. And why is it important? From my perspective, having started as a Nigerian firm, part of the System Specs Group that's been around for 32 years, there are quite a number of things that have happened in Nigeria that the world can benefit from. So there are many sides to going global. As individuals, as families, as businesses, we've created assets that the world can benefit from. And if only from that perspective, we're ready to take these things to the world, then we'll have done the world a whole lot of good. Within the context of business, particularly at a time like this in Nigeria where we're struggling with Forex, anything you can do outside of these shows will certainly bring in the much needed Forex. And when you are able to create value that can attract value in Forex, then it's something to look at. On another level, it will be about what you stand for, either as an individual or as a business. At the end of the day, how would you create impact? Would you want impact to just be within your local domain? Or there are other people who can benefit from the kind of things you've been able to create or bring forth? So many reasons for people to consider going global. And I'm sure as Osaloka leads the conversation, we'll be talking about the rightness of timing. Would everybody go global? Like the keynote speaker said earlier, I mean, not everyone will be in business. So some persons may still need to be here protecting and keeping the house for those who may choose to go global. And I'm quite excited to be part of this conversation. At the end of the day, I know that participants will be able to affirmatively answer the question why they should go global, when they should go global, and what things will they require to make a success of going global. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Uju, want to invite you in to share your perspective, introduce yourself as well, and then we'll dive into the conversation.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Uju Uzojinaka. I am the founder CEO of Traders of Africa, TOFA. So TOFA is a Pan-African hub for facilitating trade with and within Africa through technology. We are solving the problem of visibility of products, creating access to available products, building and bridging trust, and of course, facilitating trade. Our solutions include a Pan-African marketplace and a buyer's hub for products grown, produced, or manufactured in Africa only. Look at it as trying to build an Alibaba for Africa. And we also have the Source Pro unit, realizing that a lot of African suppliers are largely offline. So there's a need to move them from offline to online, and in the process, continue to give them business, okay, so that they remain where they are doing business. And of course, we facilitate trades through a product we call TOFA Pay, where we partner with big manufacturing companies, giving them access to raw materials from the remotest parts of Africa. Globalization is quite dear to my heart, and I'll give you 3 reasons. In 2017, when I was trying to conceptualize TOFA, 3 things were important to me. 1, from the get-go, I wanted it to be Pan-African. So this ties exactly with what Jeremy just said, is the makeup of the business from the get-go. You know, so TOFA is just one of those businesses that wasn't supposed to just be one country business. All right, so we're in various African countries. The platform has suppliers from 15 African countries, and we, TOFA, the offline, also is in about 5 African countries and growing. We're in partnership with the African Continental Free Trade Area, the National Action Commission for Nigeria, where we are their execution arm. So the makeup of TOFA is that it has to be global to be able to achieve our goal. But then we also understand there's a great need also to be local. There's this thing about local, going on, and COVID has taught us that, yes, we all have to be global, but we have to find a way to also infuse local in whatever we do. This is an interesting conversation, and I can't wait for us to dive in. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Uju. So, we've heard a couple of different pieces. I think one similarity that I'm hearing here is this idea of Forex, right? And the challenges of Forex, and potentially being global as a way to make sure that we're actually bringing some of that Forex in to support the local economy. So really hearing that piece here. And, Uju, you just talked about the fact that actually the fundamental goal of your business is to be global, right? I think you described it as the Alibaba on the African continent, right? So for some businesses, it's fundamental to the path that we choose. For other businesses, it may not be so fundamental, but it also might have its advantages, right? By supporting that Forex piece that I just talked about. And as I sort of hear all the different introductions from all three of you, it strikes me that there may, in fact, be some complementary services afoot here. So I'm seeing that Jeremy with the payment systems, I think Uju facilitating trades, and I think Aisha having a product to put on the platform. So I'm actually seeing something pretty interesting that could maybe work out in this situation. So maybe you all need to have a conversation after this. Okay. So as we dive in here, the first thing I'll really just ask, so we've just defined a little bit about what going global might mean, how it might be foundational to some businesses and not foundational to others. But also, as we think about going global, there are certain risks and rewards that are available to us. So I want to open up with that question. As you think about this idea of going global, what are some of the risks that are really present as you move forward with this? I know that Dr. Wigwe talked about potentially for discrimination, regulatory issues that might get more and more difficult because of where we're coming from, right? So that's one of those ideas. So I do wonder, what are some of the risks that might be involved in going global? And then also, as we sort of think to the other side, what are some of those rewards that can really offset some of those risks? So I'll open up the floor here, and maybe Aisha, I could start with you.
Sure. I think one of the risks with going global is not being prepared enough. Going global is a completely different ball game to being local, and this has nothing to do with necessarily your capacity, your ability, and your performance, but just your working in a different environment with different rules and regulations, with different cultures, with different languages, with different currencies. So I think sometimes the expectation is that going global is about competency, but even with competency, going global is just about knowing what you're going global, where you're going, right? And really understanding what you need to do to operate in that environment. And I think the risk often is that people focus more on the competency and less on the nitty-gritty, tiny things that may not seem as important, right? The legal side of things. So I think that one of the risks is people what they think they need to get ready to go global often sometimes they may forget the basics, which can affect the success of their businesses going global. So I think that's one of the risks people face in terms of thinking about global. But I'll open to my other panelists to jump in with other thoughts.
Okay, let me wade in here. I agree absolutely with Aisha on everything she has said. And for someone who is on that path, we experienced that firsthand. The culture of the people, that your business has survived in Nigeria doesn't necessarily mean that it will survive elsewhere. So those are some of the risks that you tend to, experience as you move global. So you need to understand the culture of the people. Is your business needed? Some people has been very successful in one country, but the next country, your product is not needed. So there's this a research and an understanding that you must first of all know. So yes, you want to go global, then where do you want to start? How is the competition in that location? Okay, this is apart from looking at all of the legal compliance issues and all of that. I don't want to sound like a naysayer and saying that global is difficult and probably don't do it. I mean, you're listening to someone who is on that path. But I'm saying that it's very, very important that we realize what the challenges are, so that when we're thinking about that, we're able to have a holistic view of what to expect even before we step out in the first place. So you need to understand the legality of those places. Some product that goes in Nigeria will not go in certain African countries. Like if some of the French-speaking countries are highly still cash dependent. So if your business is one that has to do with transfers, immediate values, most of these companies do not do immediate values. Transferring from one bank to the others, you don't get immediate value. You probably have to wait 2-3 years before you get value for transfers you've done. So if your business is based on that kind of model, you're going to have a serious issue. Okay, so you have to really understand where you're going. What obtains in that location? What is the competition like? Okay, you might be saying, okay, I want to leave this country to go to the next country because I'm running away from competition, but I'm probably going to head into where the competition is more strife, if you understand what I mean. So these are some of the things that you have to look at. How financial buoyant are you? It's very easy. If you're in Nigeria and you're setting up a business in Nigeria, chances are that you go from your house to an office, or even your house becomes your office, and you're saving costs that way, and all of that. But you're moving to a new country. There's a lot of cost that comes with it. Employing people, getting an office, because you need an office to operate from. You're going to stay in a hotel or probably get an apartment or something. So these are all costs. So how financially strong are you to be able to make that decision? Another is your team. Okay, do you already have a good team? Because these are some of these risks, people tend to overlook before you move into this. Of course, exchange rate is also part of it, and all that. So, but bottom line in all of this is the strategy of the company. It is very, very important that we look at the strategy of this company, of the company that you're building, and how you see globalization as a way of you getting the gains of it, if I may speak that way, before you even think of moving. If not, some businesses are structured to just be in their domestic market, and they are doing so well. Everybody doesn't have to be global. I mean, but it is what it is.
Thank you, Drew. Jeremy,
Okay, thanks. And I think I'll just follow on from where the ladies have spoken. And I think an analogy may just help drive this home. Education, everyone needs education. But think about the average Nigerian who has to go to school in China, who decides suddenly you want to go to school in China, you want to go to school in Germany, or you want to go to school in Cote d'Ivoire. Different experiences, just process it. The same thing if you're thinking of going to do business in any one of those three places. The first thing is, why are you going? Since you're asking about the benefits and the rewards, why are you going? Why are you thinking of doing business outside Nigeria? If there isn't any need for the goods or services you provide, then you have no business going out there. Number two will be, do you understand the environment? We're still talking about the benefits and rewards. What works here may not work elsewhere. And there are different regulations, and I think the ladies spoke so extensively about that. And just think about this again. For some people who may be familiar with the UK, in London, you probably have heard of Obalende Suya. Think about it. Is it the same way the typical guy in Obalende does his Suya in Obalende in Lagos that he will practice there in London? It's still the same Suya. So no quality assurance here, no regulation. It just, the next kiosk by the road, you just put fire with charcoal and you see everybody parking. You can't do that. It's still the same suya. And then you look at the motivation, what's taking you out there. There are times that it could be a pull effect. Nigerians are just migrating to a particular place, and then all of a sudden there's a need for some kind of thing you'd always provided here. So it could be dressmaking, it could be hair making, it could just be food making, and all of a sudden your services, which you never, so there could be a pull effect. You never even thought about it, but all of a sudden, and we can see a number of products like that where the manufacturers in Nigeria are not even the ones benefiting, because some people are just cleaning out the shelves and taking these things to different parts of the world. So let's roll back a bit and say, so the benefits for anyone who's thinking global, the benefits to a large extent will be that there's an extended market for you to have more revenue. I mean, more revenue, because that creates new markets for you. You're expanding what you're able to do. The other thing is you could also benefit from exposure to technologies and processes in those environments that can improve your throughput and turnaround. Yeah, because you are now being exposed to processes you were never aware of. Number three, you could also be exposed to skills that you didn't have. So all of these things, so those are the kind of benefits. So there are always two sides. But before you take that decision, since that's the focus of this panel, taking that decision to go global, there are fundamentals. And because we've said global is just peeking over the fence outside of your country, there are many things that can go along with that. It's either you're going alone, you're going in partnership, you want to go to start with someone who's already entrenched there, who understands the market and is open to doing business with you. On the last note, technology has made it possible for you to actually be able to go global without leaving physically, without leaving your space. And I guess that's the kind of thing that Traders of Africa are trying to do, just a single platform, create a marketplace, and people can relate with you. You probably don't even need offices, and you're built around logistics and other things. So it is possible to go global. You must have things that people desire out of your market. You must have an understanding of how things work. You must be clear in your mind what the benefits to your business are expected to be for going global. Maybe you should just hang it there for now. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeremy. So we've had a couple of different. Oh, go ahead, Aisha. Go ahead.
I just wanted to quickly add something, just to Mr. Jeremy's, discussion around the potential revenue expansion that going global could add. I think there's two sides to that, right? I think there's also a risk in that when you start focusing on this new global market, there is a risk that it damages your local market, right? And so what are the trade-offs that might happen when you start to think global and start to look outside? How does that affect what's happening locally? And whether or not you have that strong foundation that going global does not affect your local market. I think that's really important to bear in mind. And then the other thing in terms of rewards is that there are a lot of rewards about going global that are not financial, right? And there are a lot of intangible rewards and benefits to going global that do not necessarily have easily quantifiable economic value. I think Sir Jeremy talked about innovation, technology, exposure to that, and seeing new things and being able to now bring that back into your organization and strengthen your processes, right? I think there is just that exposure of seeing new things, new places that might ignite innovation in yourself to think about your business differently and delivering that a lot better in terms of the solution that you're going for. It might inspire kind of a new business direction. So I think there are a lot of really great benefits that are intangible, because seeing the world from a different lens to what you're used to really can ignite new ideas.
Thanks, Aisha. So we've heard a couple of different pieces, and I think one theme that has come up across the risks that we've talked about are some of these cultural differences. And I'm wondering if anyone has any examples of what those have been, and actually how you overcame some of those challenges as you were thinking about going global and you were entering into new markets. So yeah, I'll hold that question. Maybe Uju, Jeremy, if there's something, these cultural pieces that have come up for you, would love to invite that.
Okay, so let me go. So I agree, Jeremy, you hit the thoughts, when you said that Traders of Africa is building a platform where we don't have to move and people would signing, and it's a market, right? Trade and all of that. But that's just one aspect of what Traders of Africa does. The major part of it is the offline, where we bring people from offline to online. Trust me, more than 95% of suppliers in Africa are offline. So there's a need, training that has to occur to bring people online. Another thing is to facilitate trade. Why will a farmer continue to farm if he farms and he's unable to sell? I mean, when we were setting up these Traders of Africa in 2017, in one of the communities where we visited in Ghana, we were told that 2 days before we came, a tomato farmer died, committed suicide, because he planted tomato, he borrowed to plant, and there were no buyers, and the tomatoes perished. So he lost hope of paying the debt he took, so he committed suicide. Of course, everybody in the community signed onto the platform, but that's just one of the examples. Okay, so there's a need, to be local in each of those locations, and that's another way where globalization comes. And one way we have solved it, because if you want to go to Benin Republic, for instance, I mean, they're just next door here. Less than 1 hour, 2 hours from Mile 2 in Lagos, you're already inside Porto Novo, But for you to register a company there, and you want to register as a foreigner, it takes forever, a lot of requirements. You can't even open an account. And I think it's probably vice versa in Nigeria. So first thing, what we decided to do in TOFA, and I got this from my association with the Jack Ma Foundation, with the Alibaba Global Initiative, that partnership is the fastest way to grow. So what we do, one of our ways of going global is that we must have a partner in that location. That partner provides that local knowledge, provides those things that we need. He has an office, so I don't have to start looking for an office. The partner's office is automatically TOFA's office, all right? So the partner has a share, of course. So registering the company and regulatory compliance becomes easier because the partner understands it. I remember when we opened in Benin Republic, the partner says, okay, for the next 1 year, we're not going to pay tax, but we need to still file the tax, even though it's going to be zero. And look at the time that the tax needs to be filed. And he's the one that drives that because he understands the local market. Okay, as we move, he's able to bring that information and those resources you need to be able to scale well and be successful in what you do. So the question is, how do you find the right partner? And that's the major issue, because once you find the right partner, then you're on the path to success, and really, partnership it is for us really, in trying to solve some of these problems that we have also brought out. But even before we start looking for a partner, the first thing is to realize, is our service needed in that location? Is that the location to go to? Like we keep saying, Traders of Africa might not physically be in Kenya because of how saturated Kenya market is, but we're interested in Tanzania, in Uganda, in all the surrounding countries around Kenya, but probably not Kenya. Okay, we haven't officially, even though we launched in Ghana, but we haven't officially gotten that aspect of Ghana. But see us in Mali, in Togo, okay, and I'm interested in Burkina Faso, really. I'm talking about the offline part, but probably not Ghana at this point. Eventually we will, but in terms of market expansion, this is it. And it stems from understanding the market and trying to understand your space in where you're trying to go. So these are some of the things we have done. It's not a huru for us, trust me. So far, it's still a startup. There's still so many things we need to do, so many challenges that is still around us, even as we try to go global. But, the little ones we are doing, we're trying to solve this way and create partnerships to help us with the movement.
So thanks, Uju. Aisha, I see you coming off mute, so I want to invite you in. And then, Derek, if anything you want to add, I'll invite you too.
Yeah, so I think the culture question is so interesting. So I work in dairy, and if you've been following what's going on with dairy across the world, in most developed countries, dairy farmers are shutting down their farms, they're going out of business. And then there's a whole debate on climate change and livestock. So a lot of young, up and coming, people coming newly into professional life, and those who have the buying power and no longer for their values don't allow them to support anything that involves livestock, right? So you have a huge movement around plant-based products, whether it's plant-based meat or plant-based milk. So people are now drinking oat milk, soy milk, rice milk, and that's the new phase for developed markets. So from a culture perspective, right, culturally in developed markets, even when you like livestock-based products, it's almost taboo for you to say that I eat meat or I drink cow's milk, right? Because there's this huge movement against it. So for our business, right? If we just got up today and say we want to serve the European market or the US market, right? We will fall flat on our hands, because the direction in which that market is moving culturally, your consumer has changed. Their beliefs are different, their values are different, and they look at things very differently, right? So I think just to answer your question around culture, I think there's culture and just in terms of, ethnicity and things like that, but there's just also culture in terms of what are the beliefs hanging around in that environment, and what is the trend that you're seeing in terms of when people are moving towards in terms of sustainable buying, right? And I think that's even when I think about TOFA, I'm sure a huge part of that, when you're thinking about trading, sustainable buying and people asking about sustainability, that's something that's important. So I think that's an interesting cultural segment that does play a part that we often no, I don't think we overlook it. I think that, but it does significantly impact the decisions that we make.
So
maybe
here are a couple of go ahead, Jeremy, go ahead. Yeah.
All right. Speaking from the technology perspective, and like I said earlier, there are times when there's a pull factor, and the first time this happened was just about the turn of the century. The dot-com bubble, and everybody came looking to Africa for skills. And right about now, everyone is coming to Africa to look for skills again. It wasn't mainly about people wanting to go global. The globe came looking, and you can see today quite a number of people in Nigeria offering services beyond these borders, right? And all of a sudden, they can service organizations in more than one country. That's a pull factor. What are the risks there? I don't see. One of the things that probably affects them could be working across timelines. But if you see the kind of returns for the same rewards for which they were earning Naira, so there's a global call on talent, especially in technology, and that's part of going global. And what that has done is it's exposed people who otherwise might not have been aware of what opportunities exist. And number two, they've been exposed to new standards of getting things done. You only can get things done without clear documentation, and we talk about innovation and what going global does to you. And number three, the earning power, of course, goes up significantly. Number four is it's now possible for you to explore how to provide the same skills across different markets about the same time. So talking about going global within the business context, especially in technology, it's become a thing that it's more of a pull factor, and it's a global phenomenon. So while people may be talking about, oh, don't touch dairy or touch meat or anything, in technology it seems to be otherwise. There's a great demand for African-based skills, especially the qualitative one. The impact of that on the economy then is new opportunities are being created locally for people to take on jobs. So there are some benefits that are secondary benefits of those who might have gone global. And that just continues to trail. I just wanted to put that in, that within the tech space, the variables may be a bit different from production, manufacturing, and trade. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Jeremy. So I'm hearing a couple of different things here. So as we sort of started this conversation, really thinking about the cultural aspects of it, Uju, you really talked about local knowledge being incredibly important, right? On the ground, working with people, you might not be able to get things done, right? You might not be able to open a bank account. You might not be able to, any of those things that might keep your business sustainable. And so actually one of the things that you really shared that's important to note here is that partnerships are really, really critical to going global, whatever that might look like. You cannot just rely on yourself, your own local knowledge, to take that to somewhere else and have the desired impact that you want. So I think that's something that's really, really important. I think you also talked about this idea of competition. So if I'm going somewhere, so I think you talked about in Kenya, where actually the market is already saturated, right? So you actually know what that looks like. And maybe even culturally, people already have a name brand that they recognize. And so there might not be any space for your own brand in that space. And so you might make a decision to actually stay away from that. So I think that's something that's important. Aisha, you talked about this idea of markets and the different products. So your product has to be right for the specific market that you're going into, right? So if I'm going and I'm saying, hey, you know what? I have all this agricultural setup right now in Nigeria. We have all these cows. We're going to be thinking about all the dairy products that we can be getting from them. I might be hearing that in England. I might be hearing that in Germany. I might be hearing that in the United States and thinking that's actually what we're moving away from. I think you mentioned this idea of oat milk. I go to the shops every day and I see that, right? I've never bought it, but I have seen it, and I recognize that that is something that is really, really driving the markets here as well. So that's something that's really, really important to think about. And so it's not just an idea of saying, I want to go global. What are the most mature markets? I want to go to England. I want to go to Germany, whatever it looks like. That might not be the case. So going global for you might actually mean thinking about the right markets with the right mindsets for your very specific product. So I think that's something that's really, really important to pull out as we think about that cultural piece. That's really, really important. Jeremy, you talked about this idea of tech, right? Being potentially a bit more agnostic or like different around those different pieces. So maybe we don't care so much about what the product is because the product is people and the need is for those quantitative skills, right? So actually in the different markets, that cultural context might actually have different implications. So if we're thinking about bringing in Nigerian employees that might be supporting whatever it might look like, tech products in other areas, maybe the thing that we're thinking about is what the time zone looks like, right? What the language barriers might be, what all those different cultural pieces, but from our end to their end, right? As opposed to from their end to our end. So really appreciating some of those perspectives there. And as we sort of think about this, I want to really transition here and actually really think about, okay, so we've talked about the risks. There might be some risks. There might be some rewards. We might be able to get more money, right? There might be more markets that we're exposed to. I think, Jeremy, you talked about that. But also, Aisha, you talked about this idea that maybe that will make you sort of detract from your current market, right? And so the question I want to pose to us here is, okay, so is going global always the right move to make, right? So we've talked about this challenges, we talked about these rewards. Is it always the right thing to do, right? Like, and what really makes it the right thing to do for you and for your company? So I'll hold that question open for folks, and whoever would like to get us started, the space is yours.
Okay, maybe I can get started on that. And I think that's at the heart of this conversation. Honest truth, not everyone has to go global. A wrong move can wreck everything you've built over time. Just a single wrong move. And if you recall from the keynote speaker, he was sharing thoughts, and I found that quite inspiring of why I went to study law. Being aware of your environment is a great, great thing. And just one step outside of where you're familiar with can erode everything you've ever built. So going global is not for everyone. Number two, there must be a clear need you are meeting in the way in which the market out there wants it. Because you've made something here in your local market is not sufficient reason for you to attempt to take it across the borders. Different things would apply there. And we have examples of people who have done so well here and have attempted to go outside of the immediate environment, and that has been the death of their businesses. But on the other side, there are those who have also on the same pedestal gone outside the borders and have actually had to shut the local operations because they became more prosperous and they understood the environment better. They had access to better credit, better resources, and other things. So that decision will always be a function of what you see, what you know about the market you want to step into. There are people who have gone there and come back. Yeah, and they're just lucky with their tail between the legs to come back because just the environmental factors alone were enough. Around here, we don't talk enough about taxes. And people think about repatriation of funds. You've made it, then what next? How do you get your money out of that market? What exactly are you going to do? And even when you set up partnerships, like Uju mentioned, even when you set up partnerships, make sure those partnerships are protective enough. We've also, we've got examples of partnerships that have turned over to take over the business because you're just not familiar enough in the environment in which you've gone. So the things I think you'll need a sense of the value you've created and you're thinking of taking up, a fair idea of the environment where you're planning to go to play, or partnership with someone who understands that environment, good enough contractual obligations that can protect you. Number 4 will be, how exactly are you going to repatriate your funds, and what are the things that those funds can be subjected to? If your taxes in Nigeria aggregate maybe, I don't know what it is, 15%, 30%, what exactly will it be out there? And number 5, know when to retreat. The world always goes on economic cycles. So timing is going to be of great essence when you're making a move. If you go to invest at a time where the returns on the capital will not support going, but having said all of this, go all the same. Just that you've got your eyes open and you're sure you're creating value, you're sure you're protected, and that everything you've put in place to the best of human ability can ensure your business continues to survive and grow better than when you took that step to go
out. Aisha, go ahead. I'll ask my. I see everyone's ready, so let me not put another question out there. Aisha, and then Uju will come on in.
No, I think I agree absolutely. And even before he spoke, you know, when you ask such a question, business school taught us that you should say, I'm sure some of the people who are in business school here understand. The answer is usually straight up answer, it depends. All right. And it depends on all of these things that Jeremy has pointed out. In my head, I was saying strategy, timing, geography, and he just, you know, kind of like nailed it. You know, so I agree absolutely with him. The timing needs to be right. The strategy needs to be right. So that people don't go and take your business, you know, and the geography, where you're going to and all of those things needs to also be right. So it depends. And some businesses don't have to be local, global. If you're running a pop shop, if what you have is a supermarket, you know, and you have one shop in Lagos State and you want to go global, you know, you have to look at that critically, you know, before you move, because there are a lot of supermarkets in a lot of these places. So what are you going to be doing in that location and all of that? So that's part of strategy. You know, also I agree with Jeremy, timing is very key. When do you move? When you can be moving at the time when everybody's looking for where to go and you think you're doing the right thing and you move in and you're so stuck, you know, and all of that. So you must, there's a knowledge, you know, there's a research that has to happen. And this one is not the one that you tell people to, maybe you pay consultants to help you research, you know. There's some that you have to do by yourself, a knowledge by yourself as the public founder, CEO. For me at TOFA, you know, it's something that I personally have to sit down, get accustomed to that location myself to even understand. Because remember, as the head of businesses, nobody understands your business more than you do. In fact, there's a channel of your business that you probably haven't been able to, you know, explain well to your team. You're the only one that probably have the vision and all of that, you know. So you have to understand it well and understand that location before you even start saying, okay, let's get a consultant or let's do this or let's do that. So I agree with you absolutely, Jeremy.
Awesome. Thank you, Aisha. Come on in.
I wholeheartedly agree with everything that has been said, but I'm going to take it a step earlier than the decision, right? So I think the crux of it is your intention, purpose, and objective, right? Before even the idea of whether you're going to go global, where you're going to go, which market you're going to touch. I think it's really important for people to sit down and decide for themselves what that intention, purpose is, and then the objective, right? What do you want to see when you go global? What is the outcome that you wish to have, right? Because some of it may be financial, Some of it may be recognition, right? You are top of your field in the current market that you are operating in. You want recognition beyond your current market. That's why you are going global, right? Again, another intangible benefit that may not be necessarily 100% financially driven, right? So I think going through that process and understanding your intention and that drive behind going global is really important. And then I think, Jeremy talked about your financials and stability around your financials, right? I think you have to ask yourself, is your current business stable, right? Because the decision to go global is going to turn things upside down. So is your current business stable enough to withstand whatever shocks you might meet, right? Because going global, going to a new market, it's never going to go according to plan, right? You are going to come across many hurdles. You're going to have a lot of issues. So is your existing business that has allowed you to have the capacity to go global stable enough to withstand that decision to go global? I think that's so important, because if that foundation isn't there, you may end up going global to find that you have nothing left to support that global expansion that you intentionally started off with, right? And I think the other thing is also perception is not always reality, right? There is always this perception that going global foreign is better, or going global or foreign is superior, right? And it is not always the reality, right? There are people that are producing products or services in Nigeria that are better than whatever, excuse me.
Sorry.
I clearly got too excited about that.
That's what it is. That's what it is. So the space is still yours. The space is still yours. If you want to take a minute, we can. I see you drew off mute, but if you are ready,
go ahead.
All right, Uju, let's welcome you in, and then Aisha come back to you.
I was going to say that I agree entirely with her, but I beg to differ on one thing. Not really differ. It's true what she's saying, but on the other hand, there's been instances also where in your current business in your domestic country is not working. And going global will keep your business afloat. So it goes back to understanding that location and understanding their need for your product. You may be in this particular Nigeria right now, and the product you're churning out, there are a lot of opportunities across Africa, I must say. Sometimes I don't want to call it the African country per se, but sometimes I visit some African country and I'm like, okay, this is Nigeria in the 50s. Do you understand? So I'm telling you, that's the truth. They may have very good road network, there'll be electricity, but every other thing is like, you can't even understand why. Come on, this is so easy. And it's something we do, but you're here and you're talking and somebody's like, calm down, you're too fast. Do you get what I'm saying? So it might be a situation where your business isn't working very well here. You're just getting by, and you know that if something is not done, you probably will go under. Globalization might actually help you if you get the right location, who needs your product, and you run it very well using all of the things that we have been saying here. You might save your business. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if you're not strong here, you may not succeed when you go out. It may actually be the other way around. I just wanted to put that out.
I think we are aligned. I don't think that we are differing in our views. So I guess I think it's still going back to that intention, right? Because in the example that you've just shared, here the objective is it's not working here, right? So I need to find somewhere else where this business model or this product or service that I'm selling is going to work, and going global is the only option for me to take it to somewhere where it's going to be successful. So I think the crux of it is understanding your why and that objective, but also understanding the outcome, right? What does success look like for you? Because it may not be the same for everybody, and being very clear about that.
Awesome. Thanks, Aisha. Jeremy, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add here, but if you did, the space is here for you. But otherwise, I do have a question, which is actually tied into I think what you said a little bit ago, Jeremy. And I'm wondering, just experience here, right? So I'm just wondering to pull out some of the things that maybe have happened along all your journeys. So I think, Jeremy, you talked about this idea of taxes. You talked about, hey, you know what? We're going out of country to make more money. But then also there's a risk that you may not be able to repatriate all those funds. And I'm wondering, do you have any experiences of things like that that have happened, especially as you sort of think about, the world that you're in with payment systems and all these different types of pieces? Anything that's sort of really stuck out for you as, wow, this is a difficult situation. How are we going to get out of it?
Thank you very much. I mean, like I mentioned, the System Specs Group has about 4 operating entities and footprints across different African countries. And in payments especially, which happens to be the space where I play in, the first thing is payments all about regulation. And every country has its own regulations about payments. In recent times, you might have read about some major payment companies in Nigeria who were in the news in some other countries because they were supposed to have been doing some things that were different from what those countries were used to. It doesn't have to be anything wrong. It just happens, it could be an understanding of the environment and assuming that the regulations will just cut across. That could be one of them. The other one could be the capital requirements to even set up in some industries. I think Uju had mentioned earlier about partnerships. For unregulated business, it may just be easy to get in partnership with someone. For a regulated business, you won't necessarily have to put some things in place and it could be capital intensive. In fact, in some countries, you will need to have a minimum capital requirement. And I think the keynote speaker also shared about that, the footprint of their bank across different parts of the world. So that in itself could be, oh, I've got this thing, but it works. Everybody should understand it works. Yeah, it works. It's going to meet a need, but there are regulatory requirements that makes you think, but you guys need this. But the laws there will need to still be work done for you to make things happen. The third thing will be, having done all of that, and then you've made all the money, if you are not careful, it may just be difficult for you to attract the value you thought you set out to achieve. What is the taxation regime and how much of the value you've created can actually be taken out? And when you talk about foreign direct investment across different countries, there are different rules. And like I said earlier, technology seems to find a way around this. And those conversations are going on within the world of technology, especially as it relates to taxation of trades over the internet. Where is the value going to be? There are different discussions around that. So there are different layers if you're providing technology resources, if you're providing products, if you're providing services that could be affected by going global, and you just need to understand that. In some other climes, they would rather project and promote indigenous businesses. Yeah. So it means, therefore, the level at which you can expand or grow is defined from day one. And you just might not be aware, and then you're really making good growth, and all of a sudden, some caps need to be fixed because the national economy is hinged on the growth of indigenous businesses. So there are quite a number of things around that, and it goes back to the issue of awareness. And like Aisha said, what is your objective of going global? But where you have created assets, you think can be sweated for value outside of your environment, then awareness will be the next big thing I'll say. Be aware of how exactly you can expropriate value. And I think that'll be sufficient for you to really achieve the objectives of going global. Having at the back of your mind, like we said right from the beginning, not everyone will need to go global. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So I want to transition us here. And I'm wondering, what has been the biggest challenge that everyone on this call right now has actually faced in going outside of Nigeria? And how did you solve that particular issue, right? So what has been the biggest challenge when you've been with your company and you've been thinking, hey, you know what? I can feel this tension. I'm ready to move out. And how did you actually overcome that particular challenge? So whoever would like to start, the space is here for you. And actually, if maybe one of the challenges was I decided not to, that is also welcome here too. So floor is open for everyone here.
Okay,
Uju,
maybe just to speak to that.
Uju, I see it just came to you.
Yeah,
so,
maybe just set the ball rolling.
Yeah.
To set the ball rolling, there are times you're thinking the next thing to do is to go global, and then you're held back in your home country. What do I mean? Some bigger opportunities just spring up that you need to pay attention to. You're still having to contend with the same resources of expanding beyond this market, which could, in some instances, cost you a bit more. You can count that as investment for future revenues. But, say what it is, Nigeria is still a very huge market, very huge market. And there are areas where you can operate, and the attraction to go global may not just be there for many of the businesses operating in that space. So that could be one that you're thinking of. The next best thing to do is to take these assets elsewhere. But there are other things calling for, you've not really met the needs locally. So that's one. But don't get too comfortable in your comfort zone, because like I said earlier, economic cycles are, it's just always a wave. You know the way the sinusoidal wave is. Yeah, so there are times you think you're doing well and the economic cycle goes on a dip, and then with every opportunity you've had, there's just nothing to show for it anymore. So there are times that going global is actually for portfolio diversification to keep your business running, because no one rides the crest forever. And so it's a game of balance to say we're doing well for now. The other market might not look too well, but it's not impossible you take a decision to put a leg in, because you just may run into troubled waters in the local market where you are, and everything is affected. The Forex, the skills and everything. And so those are some of the things we've found in working, going global. There are times that the partners you want to go into the market with are not just ready for your kind of energy. Trust me, Nigerians have got energy. So while you're pitching and you got a vision that this is what it should be, 12-month projection, they're looking at you as if you're from Mars. How would you be dreaming of this? But that's the environmental reality there. And all of a sudden you realize that the projections based on your experience here may not necessarily be what you should expect from there. So that awareness comes to play again in that space. And then you're talking about resources, talking about skilled resources that can get the business going. Not many times would you find people that may meet the kind of rigor you're used to. So you need to also, that needs to temper your expectations, And so those are some of the issues we've encountered in going global. And on a last note will probably be the issue of values. And that may just be to us as a company. You want value alignment. You want people who share the things you believe in. That's not just all about the money, but how the processes of getting to make the money about the business. And that's not something we will compromise on. And so that could also be something that you've got partners, but they may be struggling with the kind of values with which you operate. And so those are some of the issues that we've had to contend with in going global. And as the days roll by, we're sure we're going to get our feet firmer outside of Nigeria into Africa and the other parts of the world.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeremy. It felt like there was a real experience that you remembered, that you thought, hey, we actually experienced this very specific challenge and here's how we overcame it. So this is your space right now to share that.
No, our own is legion. There's a lot of experiences. This is what we do in TOFA. So let me give a typical example. In Nigeria, you cannot export maize. Maize is banned from being exported out of this country. But Togo, you can export maize. So if I have customers who are outside of this continent, outside of Nigeria, that needs maize, it is in my interest to develop businesses along these other lines so I can be able to export maize to them. Okay, so these are some of the issues that we saw and which will necessitate us moving. This is aside the strategy of TOFA, which is globalization from the get-go. All right, so there's some things you can't do. So if we want to supply, and this is still work in progress for TOFA, for instance, our target is to be able to give people the products that they need throughout the year. And Africa is so blessed that, for instance, cashew season starts in Nigeria between February and March, all right? cashew season starts in Tanzania around September, October. Okay, and it will run till like February, March. And then Nigeria will start and run till like maybe May, June, July. Do you understand? And in Togo, for instance, it will probably start in March, April, and run till July, August. So if you are interested in this kind of products, and your interest is also to be able to supply throughout the year, it will favor you to have a foothold in these locations so that you are able to meet the objective of your company. Okay, so for us at Traders of Africa, remember I said that we're a Pan-African company. So it is important for Traders of Africa to be in all over the 54 countries of Africa. We have not gotten there yet, but that's the mindset. So we're still looking for partnerships in the countries we've identified that we need to move in the short term, in the immediate short term, in the medium term, in the long term. So once we have those partnerships, because we have already devised the strategy, you know, and the process of movement into a new location. Okay, so these are some of the things. Of course, when you're doing some of these trade, remuneration comes with it. You're making more money and all of that. Like I've said, Nigeria is a big market. Typical, all the challenges you will see in a big market is here. You know, you have more people doing the same thing because we are big. You know, nobody has a monopoly of anything except you are wired, infused with the government and all of that. You know, and then you have a monopoly of some sort. But if you do not, for instance, you realize that a lot of people are playing in your space. So you need to find a way to reinvent yourself. And some of them for us at Traders of Africa includes that we have to look for how to get these products outside of our chores to ensure that, you know, we're able to meet the requirements of our buyers. I know that's how we create impact, right? Because remember, if a farmer produces and he's unable to sell, he will not produce tomorrow. But if he sells today, you know, then he's able to continue to produce. So one of the products that we have, the Tofa Pay, we're able to scale that across the continent because first of all, we partner with manufacturing companies. Like in Nigeria, we're in partnership with FMAN, Flour Milling Association of Nigeria, to provide such services that enables them to be able to take from farmers in the remote parts of Nigeria, you know, and we also have that across the other African countries where we trade in.
Awesome, thanks, Uju. All right, Aisha, I see you're here, and then I'm gonna invite us all to do a quick wrap up, and then I'll put some questions from the chat. So Aisha, what's coming up for you?
So I think just jumping on kind of one of the last things that Uju mentioned, which was around requirements, right? I think one of the challenges is around meeting the requirements of your global market, right? So for us at CHAM, our primary regulator is NAFDAC. But if you look at the requirements that NAFDAC puts in place for our own products, if we wanted to go global and we only met whatever requirements NAFDAC put in place, we would not be able to go global, right? So, and even when those requirements are put in place, there might be not as stringent in enforcement of those requirements. So you have to self-regulate in some respect. So you have to be your own regulator. You have to be the one setting the standards that you want to achieve for your own products and finding ways to kind of build your capacity to meet those requirements that would enable you to go global, right? One of the things we've struggled with is finding external laboratories that are able to do certain tests on our products, right? I don't know if you're familiar with something called A1 and A2 milk, right? Which has to do with the milk proteins that are in the milk, right? Right now in Nigeria, we do not have anybody that can test our milk to tell us whether or not we have A1 or A2 proteins, right? So I think there's a huge challenge around the infrastructure and capacity that the country has to enable you to be able to do certain things, which is why you find a lot of companies are not able to establish themselves or go beyond a certain point, because the capital required, right? So in this instance, right, do I go and build a lab that enables me to be able to test for A1 or A2 proteins? And in building that lab, what is the capacity utilization of that lab if I'm the only one actually needing to use that to conduct those tests? Versus if I use the same equipment, we'll probably be able to service 20, 30, 50 companies, right? But if I'm investing in that just for my company, you can imagine the cost benefit analysis around that. Maybe it's worth getting that A2, A1 understanding to know how you can position your products. But I think that regulatory environment and the infrastructure enabling you to meet those requirements to go global can be extremely challenging in a country such as Nigeria, right? There are times where we will randomly send a sample to 4 different labs. We've actually had to send samples to a lab in Abuja, a lab in Kaduna, a lab in 2 labs in Lagos, right? And all 4 labs gave us different test results, right? For the same product. So I think that there are just so many challenges, right? When you're expected to be the expert in every single thing, right? Whilst the people you're probably going to compete with in the other markets already have that infrastructure, and they have other partners that they can work with to provide them with these different services. Whilst here, we're actually having to cover all those services for ourselves.
Yeah. So because of that, I'm wondering, what's the ultimate, what was the ultimate impact of that situation, right? Actually not being able to make that effective distinction between A1 and A2, and actually not having the infrastructure in place in Nigeria to do that. What have you done? How did that move forward?
So one is it's not a priority for us to discover whether we have A1 or A2 proteins, right? So we parked that aside. It's a nice to have, but it's not urgent or critical to operations right now. That's number one. Number two, we're having to build our own internal lab, right? Because to be able to have that quality control that we want for the standards we want to meet, we're just going to have to build that internal capacity.
Awesome. All right, fair enough. So that vertical integration is in fact happening. It is in fact happening. Yeah.
For sure.
All right, awesome.
100%.
So we've got I'd say about 12 minutes left here. I'm going to put in a couple of questions from the chat, and then I'm just going to invite all the panelists to wrap up as well, right? So what your closing remarks might be. So start to get ready your closing remarks. But in the meantime, one question the panelist chat has is, I'd love to know how panelists got their first round of startup funding. So I think maybe people are feeling inspired and they want to see where they can get that cash to get started on their own business. So maybe, I'll invite someone to speak to that. Aisha, I see you already, so come on in.
Bootstrapping, right? It's personal savings. That's how it started. You start with the little that you have, and you show some little traction, and then other people see that you've moved from point A to B, and then they put in the little capital and they move that along. But I also recognize that that's not a luxury that a lot of people have, right? To be able to have worked. So I built a career before I went into entrepreneurship. And that enabled me to kind of save some money to be able to start my own business. So I think there's also this thing, I think, there's very sexy to be an entrepreneur and have your own business and own your own business. It's I think we sometimes it's important for people to be grounded in the reality of what that takes. And I think sometimes also it may not be the right time for you, right? So I think that there are many, if we follow the Silicon Valley Facebook story, you were in your garage in your parents' home and you started coding and you built that thing, right? That is rare. Those are exceptions. Those are 1 in a billion or whatever you want to call it, right? There is only one Facebook. I think it's important to ground yourself in the reality of where are you right now? What can you do? But also what can you show for it? For people to invest in you, invest in your business, you need to show them something that tells them that you are worth investing in, and you are something that, whatever you do is going to lead to some level of success.
I'm hearing a couple of pieces there, which is one, it's not for everyone, right? It's not for everyone, right? Two, instead of sometimes looking for money to invest in a business, you might want to build your own foundations so that you can invest in yourself, right? So it actually sounds like really saying, hey, I start with the little I have. I start with what I'm able to save from my 9 to 5, right? And actually, that's what gives me that platform. And then two, three, I really have to know what the product is that I'm asking people to invest in. So it's not just invest in me as an idea. I am an entrepreneur. It's actually saying this is the value that I want to add. So that is why you should invest, right? So it's not awesome. Aisha, thank you very much for that. I'll hold the space. Uju, Jeremy, any thoughts about that first investment that you want to share? And then I'll invite everyone to start to think about what are your closing remarks, right? What do you want to leave with the people before we close out here today?
Okay, maybe just to speak to getting the business off the ground, you need to believe in yourself before other people believe in you. And to almost always, for something to thrive, it will be a demonstration of how much you put in it yourself. And like I mentioned, the System Specs Group is over 30 years. And the founder stepped out with his own funds and how to generate funds to set a vision on a path. And today, there are 4 operating entities, and each one on a firm footing, just because one man had an idea, put his own money in it. And that's what it is. The other things that come after that will be the passion that becomes infectious, that makes other people want to believe in that. And you may find out that that passion may be much more than the funds that are coming from other sources. And your early business success serves as seed for you to invest in that business so that it continues to generate, to sustain itself. So a number of people need to learn more. May not be very sexy today for people to talk about the concept of deferred gratification. You make the first $1,000 or pounds is not for you. It is for you to sustain that business so that when others come knocking, it becomes valuable and they can see that it can really meet the expectations around the value you've created. So that will be what I want to say until we wrap up. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeremy.
Okay, I think I kind of agree with Aisha and Jeremy. For me at TOFA, I actually, before TOFA, worked in various Nigerian banks for like 9 years and worked in our family business also for 10 years before I started TOFA. And bootstrapping still is bootstrapping. And the truth of the matter is, I don't think I'm doing well in fundraising. I am not, but I'm learning. God will help me. I remember that when we built TOFA and launched in Ghana in 2017, my tech lead at that point said, Uju, okay, we've built a very robust platform. It's now time to go and start raising money. Okay, and I told him, I said, well, it's good to raise money at that point, but I would rather that we have a business that I even understand, first, before we go to start telling people. So having a platform isn't a business. I need us to start making a revenue, look at all of the issues, start solving those problems before I can now approach anybody to say, please, can you invest in what we are doing? And that's what we have done in the last 5 years. And we've added a lot of value. Our valuation has increased such that if we now that we're ready to raise the fund, it's interesting to have those conversations, and look at the valuation people are giving to something that we have been grinding in the last 5 years. So I would think that starting small is key. But while we're saying start small, you must have the vision of where you're going and know exactly where you want to be. And the reason why you have to start small is because that's what you can afford at that time. And also you're starting small, you're able to have quick wins, which encourages you to continue to build. It's not going to be easy. I agree absolutely with Aisha, and I think Herbert also made mention to it. Not everybody will be a business person. Some people will help others, but their vision, which is you're going to work and you get paid for that. Some people will be that. I think realizing where you are in this whole space will help everybody, because if not, you're going to have a lot of heartache. Aisha also said that some of us try to go into become entrepreneur because you're tired of working. Trust me, it is more difficult to be an entrepreneur. I worked in Access Bank. Herbert was our MD at a point, you know, and I would give anything to go back to that life, you know, where I don't have to think about anybody's salary at the end of the month. I just do whatever I'm doing. End of the month, my account is, I receive my alert and I'm very happy with myself. But right now, I'm the one that has to look for the money to pay other people. It's not a funny thing if you don't already have it right. So please start with what you have and try to get like minds around you. What has also helped us, like I've said, we are bootstrapping, still bootstrapping. I haven't raised the money I need to raise. But partnership has also helped us to be able to circumvent some of the things that would have been very expensive for us. Okay, I don't know if that makes sense for anybody.
All right. So we have 5 minutes left. So maybe I'll just give everyone just 30-ish seconds just to say what do you want to close with, right? What is that last parting word of wisdom that you want to share with everyone as we think about being entrepreneurs, as we think about this idea of going global? What's that one piece of advice that you think is the most critical piece of advice that you want to share with people as we wrap up here?
Okay, do I start?
You can definitely start. Over to you.
I would say to yourself, be true. Okay, ideas are good. Implementation is everything. Please, this is the time to build friendships and cultivate partnerships for you to be able to succeed. Good luck. I mean, we all need it. I need more luck. And please say a prayer for me and Tufa. Thank you.
Thank you, Uju. We're throwing the prayers up and sending all the luck your way. All right, Aisha, Jeremy, welcome you both in.
Okay. I think for me, it will be have a very clear vision of what going global means to you and your business. Be very, very clear about the value you're creating and the potential it has or can attract to you where you are today. And on the last note along that will be very clear what would need to change in your business or in your processes to make a success of going out there. We've spoken about standards. We've spoken about partnerships. You cannot go out there windsurfing without being clear. You don't need all the facts, but you need enough to protect you to ensure that you do not destroy what you have in an attempt to build on it. Thank you.
So I think inherent in the idea of going global must mean that you must be dreaming beyond your borders, right? And I think a huge part of that is, I would say, continue to dream big, right? Ambition is what drives success. And so if you dream big, and you're thinking global, then that's what is going to push you and challenge you to take things to the next level. So I would say always continue. There are no limitations besides the limitations that you put on yourself. So continue to think big and have that global outlook. But as we've said throughout this conversation, there are the steps that you still need to follow, right? There are the fundamental steps that you still need to take to determine whether or not it's the right time, whether you have the capacity to do so. But really continue to dream big, continue to look out, be globally minded, because I think that's the dream ultimately, like that pushes you forward, right? That purpose, that vision, that thing that drives you forward is the beginning of everything.
Amazing. Well, I just want to thank everyone, all the panelists here, for sharing their wise words of wisdom, right? So in the last hour and 15 minutes or so, we've heard about the importance of culture. We've heard about the importance of cultural context. We've heard about the importance of finances. Be prepared, right? Don't let your adventures outside detract from your successes at home, right? Really, really important. Understand the need. Right? Does this market need you? We heard about Nairobi. Maybe we don't need that platform there, right? So again, we go to other places, Tanzania, all those different places. Important stuff, right? And timing is everything. timing is everything. And I'm really hearing that it is hard work. There are hard decisions to be made here. And so I think, as Uju said, we'll send those prayers up for everyone who's thinking about starting their own business, who's thinking about going global. Best of luck to you. And just really want to appreciate everyone for staying in tune, staying and paying attention. We'll see you next time. So thank you all. And it's been a great day.
Thank you very much to all of you for such an interesting discussion coming on the back of the keynote address. It is now my pleasure to introduce the speakers on our next panel, which discusses the reality of going global. So what is the real story? Our theme for this panel session is appropriately titled, Going Global, the Real Story. Let's listen to our panelists share their experiences, the challenges getting there, wherever the destination is. When you go global, do you ever even get there? Ms. Frances Musa is the country manager, Nigeria and Ghana of William Grant & Sons Limited, a leading multinational company in the premium spirits industry. Frances has broad professional work experience spanning across sales, market strategy and planning, commercial operations, business development, distributor operations, people, and general management. Mr. Chidi Ajere is the executive chairman, GIG Group. He's a progressive Nigerian, global entrepreneur, investor, and a strong believer in the potential of Africa. He serves as the executive chairman of the GIG Group. The moderator for this panel session is Professor Enase Okonedo, FCA. She is the Vice Chancellor of Pan Atlantic University, Lagos. Prior to this, she was Dean of Lagos Business School. Enase is a professor of management and is widely published in academic journals and is the author of 2 books. With her wealth of experience as a board member of several boards and academic background in business school, she's the ideal moderator for this panel session. We welcome you all again and invite Professor Konedo to take over from here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ejigbe, for the kind introduction. I'm really excited about this particular panel discussion because that's when we get to hear the real stories of how people have gone global or how they're thriving within global organizations. And it is indeed my delight to welcome both panelists, Frances, who is with us, and also Chidi, who we're hoping will join us shortly. He is, unfortunately, I think he's still in flight, but as soon as he touches that, he will be able to join us. It wasn't his plan to join us mid-air, but his flight got delayed. But nevertheless, I do believe that with Frances, we can have a great conversation. So Frances, once again, welcome you to the Boys to Men Foundation and to the second panel conversation as to telling your story. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, maybe we can start. I know that your experience spans a variety of organizations, many of which are global, and currently you work with William Grant, which has operations across all the continents, and indeed, Middle East and Africa. We do have, you do have a lot of presence. But could you sort of, tell your story briefly as to how you got to this point and why you chose to work within a global organization? Was there something you were seeking? How has it been so far? So please just give us a brief introduction to yourself and your journey.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I started my career in 2005. I started working, I was lucky enough to get recruited by Procter & Gamble. So that's where I started my career. I started in customer business development, and that changed at some point to sales. So we were working with distributors and trying to drive the business and grow the business in Nigeria. So Procter & Gamble, the Pampers, the Always Ariel detergent. I was there for 12 and a half years and worked across market strategy and planning, distributor operations, different. So in Nigeria, I was in Nigeria for about 9.5 years. And then I moved to Procter & Gamble in South Africa, responsible for commercial operations. So I was responsible for brands like Gillette, Old Spice, Olay, and then moved to distributor operations and e-commerce. So I was leading e-commerce for South Africa at the time. And then in 2017, I decided to come back to Nigeria. And then I had a brief stint with Henkel, and then left after 8 months and stumbled into consulting. So someone approached me and said, Frances, we're trying to build a route to market for this brand as a private equity firm looking for. And I was like, oh yeah, let's do it. And then I started. And so for 1.5 years, I was consulting for different companies, a multinational medical laboratory company as well, provider. And it was interesting to see the different aspects of sales I was doing. I mean, because of my background in distributor operations, I'd learned some of HR, supply chain. So I was also consulting on supply chain. And then in December, at some point, I think with the consulting, I just realized at that point that I wanted to still get my hands dirty. So I still wanted to make, not just, I think you should do this. I wanted to be like, let's go now. I need it by Friday, or let's do this by, not just the recommendation. So when I got different, I started looking out, and then when I got different opportunities in December 2019, William Grant offered me the role as country manager. At the point when I left Procter & Gamble, I was not looking, to be honest, for an established multinational company. So I was looking for something that was a little more of a startup, or even if it was multinational, just coming into Nigeria, because I felt like I wanted to take my experiences and help to build an organization and build a business. Because I just felt, if I go somewhere established, it's the same thing. So I wanted something that I could, really say that, in 5 years' time, we could all look back and say, wow, look at what we did, look at what we built. So that's what I was looking for. And so I found out with William Grant at the time, and they had come into Nigeria. The brands were in the country, but as a company based in Nigeria, it was quite new. Thankfully, I also joined them at the start of January, at the beginning of January 2020, just before COVID hit. So I'm very thankful to God up till now, because, if I had been consulting at the time of COVID and businesses had to shut down, the first person that would have been shown the door would have been the consultants. So God made sure I kept having salaries. So, I joined them at that time, had no prior knowledge of the alcohol industry, because I'd spent all my time in FMCG within, all the other kind of categories, but not the alcohol industry. But it was very interesting. So for me, it was a challenge. It was not just building a business, but also building an organization, to build an organization here in Nigeria. I've been here now for 3 years plus. We've more than doubled the business. Brands such as Glenfiddich, Monkey Shoulder have become, known status or luxury brands, especially Glenfiddich in Nigeria. And I was excited to continue doing. So today I'm here as the person who is working for a company that has gone global. Everyone has spoken, they have started, but I'm coming from, someone who is working for a company that's gone global, companies that have gone global. So Procter & Gamble, and also when I'm sharing my experiences, it will be across the different organizations, what I've learned, what we've seen, what we've experienced, and how people can, bring that to life. Because whether we like it or not, this multinational company started from a family. Procter & Gamble started from with two brothers-in-law, so William Procter and James Gamble, and two of them decided, let's start business together. William Grant saved for, I think, maybe over 20 years, if I'm not mistaken, and to get him and to be able to start a distillery, and himself, his wife, and his 9 children, with one mason, built the distillery. And 1 year later, the first liquid of Glenfiddich ran on Christmas Day of 1887. So, and that's a family business. It's still a family business. So the family members are still in the business today. And it's a family business that's been there for over 100 years. So who says we can't do it? So I'm coming from that person who's helping businesses grow, and I will share my experiences from that angle.
Great, fantastic. But isn't it interesting and at the same time inspiring that you're working for a family-owned business that has lasted for over 100 years?
Exactly.
And so therefore, that suggests to us that doing the same, I don't know how many of us in the audience have 9 children, but that you can actually build something that can outlast you and then last for so long. So fantastic. Fantastic. And I mean, it's interesting. I mean, your title, your country manager for Nigeria, country director, excuse me, for Nigeria, as well as Ghana. And for most organizations or for most people, when they think about expanding, when they think about going global, one of the things that they always think about is that, where is easiest for us to go? In which place there no language barrier? And sometimes that is perhaps the determining criterion that makes them go. Now, you operate within Ghana and Nigeria. For those who are thinking that, let's expand and then let's go to Ghana, is there a difference? Or really, I mean, if you were the one who was solely in charge of making that decision, will Ghana be your first point of call? And if not, where else and why not?
Well, I think it's first of all, there's a thing called low-hanging fruits. And it's always important to look at where are my low-hanging fruits. So which are the ones that are easiest to go into? I mean, easiest across, not just to walk in there, but in terms of policies, in terms of, before you go into any place, you need to actually, I mean, there's such a thing with thought during MBA, the PESTLE model. You need to look at all of those things, the political landscape, economic, social, all of those factors really need to be considered. I think the previous speakers, talked about this earlier. And that really helps you to understand what are your low-hanging fruits, which ones can I really, go into quickly. So, Ghana feels like, it's next door. We are brothers and sisters, and we have Nigerians who live there. So it feels like it's not an issue to go into Ghana. But with every country, you need to also understand, first of all, what are my products? What am I selling? What am I offering? And then if I take it to Ghana, am I meeting people needs there? Is it what's the consumer trend? So if I give you an example, for Ghana, and it's very easy for people to sit down here and say, oh, Ghana is easy, let's get into Ghana. They will like this thing. Since Nigerians like it, Ghanaians will like it. But if I give you an example, so we went into Ghana, we wanted to, we've been talking about Ghana and talking about how we had a distributor in there previously, and then and we had an office, but we decided to close the office because it wasn't viable at the time. But then we now decided to put in, and that's the thing about finding partners. So if you look at how we've come into different countries within Middle and Eastern Africa, we have, I think Mrs. Uju talked about it, finding the right partners. So we have different ways, different companies have come in different ways. Either they come in established and then they find maybe distributors or other kind of partners. We have gone in a different way where we first find the partners, people who know the business, who understand the business, who understand the terrain, and start with them, support them. And as they're building it, we bring in the office. So the people who now say, how do we sustainably build the business in the long term? So for Ghana, if I look at Nigeria is status driven. We Nigerians, we're very aspirational, and we like to show when we've arrived, when we've made it. We go to the places, we buy the drink, we pop, 4 bottles. They're using lights, and they're using lights. They must put light on top of my own bottle. If not, return it, And so Nigerians like to show off, and that's how we are. So you would think it's like that in Ghana. And so because of that, Glenfiddich and other beverages, premium beverages will do really well in Nigeria because it's a place where people like to pop. But if you go to Ghana, Ghanaians are not status driven. So I didn't say they're not aspirational, they're not status driven. So they don't have to show. They're not like Nigerians that have, everybody needs to see that, I'm better, I better pass my neighbor, In Ghana, they don't have to show you anything. They're happy, they're content with what they have. They're okay to go to the garden in the evening and just have drinks and dance and enjoy. And you see everybody having fun and dancing when they're playing, both old and young, and that's it. They're not about being in any place where they're popping. In short, most of the places where we found that there was plenty popping and co were Nigerians, So if I go there and say, no, I need to make this my particular product number 1 here, chances are I will not do as well as I thought that I would. So in every country, we now have to sit down to think, what's the culture? In Nigeria here, it's more of a bottle serve. People would buy by bottles and sit down together and drink. In Ghana, it's more of a cocktail culture. So if it's more of a cocktail culture, what am I giving to them? What am I offering to them within my portfolio that can meet their consumer needs? Unless I'm now trying to change their habits, and which way you have to start trying to do a consumer development index or whatever you call it to now change the way, to change their habit of, I do cocktails, I start trying to find how people get to drink. If you're ready to invest in that to change your habit, then that's great. Otherwise, before you say, this is the easiest of what, understand, you know, where you're going to, the trend, and if your product are really offering a need and meeting a need to the lifestyle or the trends of the consumers in that market.
I mean, that's great and quite interesting, because after we look at, you know, where's easiest to go into based on, you know, same language, the next thing, one of the things we also look for is the market size. But then what I hear you say is that beyond the size of the market, so if I take your example, I could have looked at Ghana and said, oh, the size is X million. But then within that, we sort of need to do a deep dive. And then, you know what are the habits? What is the culture? You know, and if so, will this particular product that I'm taking thrive and do well in this market? You spoke about South Africa. I think that you were in South Africa with Procter & Gamble, if I'm not correctly. And also you mentioned the Gillette brand.
Yeah.
As a matter of interest, again, looking at context, looking at cultures, is there a difference, you know, between someone who's done Nigeria, you know, established this product is widely accepted in Nigeria, Ghana, yes, if I understand the culture, is it different in South Africa? Or well, all Africa, it's all Africa, we must like the same,
Yeah.
we behave the same. What was your experience in that regard?
Yeah, so I think the problem a lot of multinationals make is that they think Africa is the same and it's one size fits all. So when they're thinking of a plan, they say Africa plan. But South Africa is not the same as Nigeria or the same as Kenya. So for example, if you look at the trade landscape, I mean, at the time I was there, when ShopRite and Co came to Nigeria, people were, you know, like predicting in 5 years, we will no longer have the open markets, the modern trade will take over, but Nigerians have kept really traditional. I mean, I think as of 2018, Nielsen said that 70% of the people who go into like modern trade still go and shop in the open market. However, in South Africa, it was more like a 60% modern trade market. So most of the shopping and everything happened in the modern trade, the pick and pays, the checkers, you know. So that's one aspect that makes us different. The second is the culture and is the people. So if you look at the landscape in Nigeria, for example, we're all mostly Blacks. And in South Africa, it's a combination. So you have the WBCI, whites, Blacks, colored, and Indians. And there's a percentage. So I think the Blacks were probably about 80% of the population at the time. The whites, you had the coloreds, and then you had the Indians. And their lifestyles and the way. So even when we had to look at, so if I look at a brand like Gillette, for example, I found that I sold a lot more Mach 3s, for example, and it was mostly more of the whites buying it, because at the time we found that the Blacks had less hair, and so we're not shaving as much as, you know, the whites would shave. So if I was, and then we found also that for them, it was also, you had to also look at their social economic background, and you had to look at where they were in terms of their finances. I'm trying to remember the word we always use, right? But how many of the Blacks were in top tier, in top one that would use X? How many of the whites were there? And we found that the majority of the Blacks were probably using disposables. So we had to refine our plans so that if I'm trying to do something on Mach 3 for the whites in modern trade, I have to do something for disposables there, because they will not buy it, you know? So within Nigeria and Kenya, I mean, it's also the landscape in terms of policies, political landscape. within the different countries, it is very different. In Nigeria, for example, the culture where, I mean, there's also now a bottle serve culture driving in, growing in South Africa. There's also a lot of, Nigeria to the world. So we're influencing a lot. But the people are still different. There's a spirit of Ubuntu. I am because we are in South Africa, might be similar to our own collectivism as well in Nigeria, because we always like to celebrate in a group. So there are some similarities, but there are some things that are quite different. And you really need to understand that. There's something called cash and carry as well. And it's like a mini Ukiari in a warehouse, in a massive warehouse. But then you have what you call buying groups in South Africa. So they will put together money. So those wholesalers will belong to a buying group because they'll put money together as a buying group, and then they will go and buy from this kind of cash and carries and get discounts. But in Nigeria here, the wholesaler, me, I'm selling my own, you are selling my own. And if you are somewhere maybe in the East and we're selling the same thing, I can go and get money and, down price my own so that I can push you out of business. So there are different things that are quite similar, but also very different in terms of our culture, in terms of the people, in terms of consumer trends and way of life. In South Africa, there's a lot more data. The e-commerce trend is a lot higher than in Nigeria, so you need to understand. I mean, so we have a lot of, smartphone penetration. We're doing a lot of social media and but e-commerce is still quite small, very small, smaller than it is in South Africa. So it's those things that you need to look at to understand what are the similarities and differences in the two countries. And there was quite a bit of it.
Wow. It's very interesting. I find this all very interesting because really when one looks at global corporations, one of the things that we sort of imagine is that, they have a global strategy which is pursued across the different markets. But what I hear you say is that, that strategy has to be contextual. Because if you do a global strategy and you think that it will work the same in every market. So for those of us that have a way of doing things, for us homegrown or domestic organizations that have begun in Nigeria, and we think that the way that we're going to go to others is taking the same strategy, what I hear you say is not at all.
No, I'll give you an example. When I was in Procter & Gamble, and I'll try not to name the brand for not to, confidentiality's sake. So there was a global brand that was doing well in, the Western countries, and they decided to launch in Nigeria. Oh, Nigeria is, fastest growing economy, or was the fastest growing economy at the time. We think this will do well. And we launched in Nigeria. We were sweating inside Okiari markets, inside all the markets, in Ojanja markets in the East, everywhere, trying to single market, trying to sell this particular brand or this particular product. But the problem was, like I said, it was not a consumer habit. And that's not how Nigerians are wired or how Nigerians work. So as much as we tried to push it, did everything, got feedback, told, performance, it wasn't selling. At some point we had so much non-performing inventory, and then the company decided, well, this is not working, and we discontinued it. So you could have done all the sales fundamentals, driving distribution and visibility, but if nobody is taking it off the shelves, if no consumer is coming to buy it, what will happen is either those people take it and sell it, or maybe take it and dash their friends, or use it to go to one Owambe and distribute it. And then that's the end. And then nobody buys it from you again because it's not meeting a need, or it's not the way that people, and you are trying to force, you're not even telling them why they should use this, So one of the things that we need to understand is that it's working here doesn't mean it will work here or there. So you need to understand, if I want to bring this here, will it work? Is there something similar? Yes, no. And if there's something similar, how can I make mine better? How can I speak more to these people? How can I drive equity? How can I give people value for the money that they spend? What's the reason to believe? And so that's one of the things that, I've learned in this journey, that it works there. Even that it works in Nigeria doesn't mean it will work in Kenya, for example. But there are chances. So let me not give all the negatives. There are chances that it's working in Nigeria and you take it to Kenya and it explodes, you know. But just really understand that you have the right to win, or what the right to win is and what the reason to believe is.
Yeah, interesting. You know, you haven't, you know, you've stated what you've learned, but from what you've said, I would add something else that I've learned, which is that, you know, you can't force a dead horse to drink. So if you do go to a market and then you try and it's not working, maybe rather than force it to work, it's to say, you know what, we've tried, it's not working. Let's step this down. Let's re-strategize. Because you put a lot of time and effort into trying to make something work, whereas the market, you can change the habits, you can change the culture. Well, that's interesting. Thanks, Frances. I'm really getting excited about this conversation because there's just so much that we're learning from it. Now, the other part that I want to talk about, only because obviously I've been in the business of people development almost all my life, and I know that regardless of what our aspirations are, whether we want to go global or whether we want to expand domestically, one of the key drivers is really talent. And now, you know, when you go, people are going global, people are being forced to unwittingly. I'm sorry, organizations have been forced to. So for instance, you're recruiting talent from all over only because half your people from Nigeria have jackpot. Please, in your own case, this jackpot syndrome, in the areas in which you operate, is it something that you're mindful of in trying to develop your strategy? And if so, how are you dealing with it? Because this is the real problem we will face. Because in order for us to do that, you know, most times we think, okay, yes, this team has done it very well in Nigeria. So you know what, my winning team, they can come up and then the people leave. So really, every market, how are you dealing with this jackpot syndrome?
Well, I think the jackpot syndrome is biggest here in Nigeria. Luckily for me, I have a small organization. I have one person in my organization who's been talking about this jackpot thing, and I've told her if you try it, you know, I will laugh about it. And when something she says, "Oh, Canada, my country," I'm like, you better behave yourself. You know, we joke about it. I think part of the thing for me that I've done is, it's a small organization, so it's easier to connect with the people and really just show that you truly care. It's also to check, you know, to look at the welfare of the people, to see, I mean, what's the inflation rate, what's going on. I mean, if you're not doing so well, you can't exactly increase the salaries to, you know, but there are different motivations that keep people. But within the jackpot, because I can't say yes, I've experienced it with people leaving and then having to replace them. But my recommendation is, you know, have a talent pipeline, you know. So you're just constantly recruiting or interviewing and recruiting and keeping in the pipeline. Because also what you don't want, or what you want to avoid, is that you lose people and you can't fill it for months, because the recruitment process takes a long time, even in Nigeria, to find the right people. It's taking us, I mean, I've been trying to fill roles that have taken me almost a year to fill a role. And so you now have people who are overworked because they're having to, you know, wear two hats to do the job and keep it going. So for me, it would be, we need to get HR people. I mean, one of the things I found is that usually HR departments is usually understaffed. You know, we just have 3 people for the whole of HR sometimes, and they're doing everything. And we say HR is a thankless job because people just don't appreciate the work that they do, but they actually do a lot of work. So if we can get the people there and someone who's making sure that you have a talent pipeline, some people choose to use recruitment agencies, but you have these people in the pipeline so that if you have this issue, because the truth of the matter is, to be honest with myself, I want to keep people, but if someone says to me that this is the best decision for me and my family, and this is done, there's not much that I can do, right? I can only just wish them well. And, you know, but the other thing that can also happen is that if this is a good individual that you don't want to lose, and they've come to you earlier to have this conversation, to keep them within the organization could also be, are there opportunities in the country that they're going to?
Okay, good.
And can we find a role for them there? so that they're still within the overall organization and contributing to build the company. So why it's not in Nigeria, it's somewhere in Canada or it's somewhere in, and I'm hoping that my colleague who has been talking of this Canada thing is not on this group and thinking that I'm going to plan to send her to Canada. But the point is, you know, I mean, at some point, because we believe that at some point in this Nigeria, in my lifetime, we will have that Japada, people will come back.
Amen.
And maybe when they do come back, we will have the role for them and they would have taken everything that they learned and help us now to take the organization to the next level.
Okay, great. So I think that, you know, your comments just provides a nice segue to the other question, because you said, you know what, if somebody is going to Canada or wherever, we may think about keeping them there. I'd just like your thoughts, because sometimes our brothers in other parts of Africa are considered to be less aggressive, to put it nicely, than we are. So sometimes when you move into another country, you sort of think, you know what, I need a Nigerian to come and set people on fire. People are just too tranquil, you're just too slow, you know, you're just doing, you know, so let's bring somebody to come here. But I do have a friend that, you know, he expanded again to Ghana. He had a thriving business here and he decided to move to Ghana. And one of the reasons that he moved to Ghana was because, apart from the usual, was that he was also half Ghanaian. And therefore he had sort of like an emotional tie and tag to that country. And the struggles, even though it was a product that was needed in the market, but the struggles for the first 2 years, going on 3 years. And then he said to me that he suddenly realized that the reason why they were struggling was because they had a Nigerian CEO. And really, they would have done better if they had appointed a Ghanaian CEO. Well, the example is, and they changed. And I don't know what they did in Nigeria, but they did make the change, and you know, the fortunes change. So now when you think about, I just welcome your thoughts to say, in going to different countries, because there's several people here who are thinking of going to other countries. What would be your thoughts? Should they move with the more aggressive Nigerians that are very target-driven and fire, or really should they stop a minute and say, you know what, things may be slow with these other people, but let's just, you know, for now, go with it? Which is it? Is it one or the other? And how would you manage that? I don't know whether you have any experience to draw on. I welcome your thoughts on this.
I think it's a mix, and that's why it's important sometimes to understand the local culture, the landscape and all. Now, with the Nigerian CEO that was sent there, I don't know if he understood how the people are, how they work. So if I give you a personal experience, when I moved to South Africa, one of the first trainings I had was cultures at work. And I think it's probably one of the best trainings I'd done. So before I started the role, they knew I was going to be leading people there. And they did this culture training. And it was a culture that trained on South Africa, on the story, what they had been through, the Ubuntu slogan, how the people are, how they're not very trusting in the beginning until they don't let you into their space until XYZ, how they work, how this, how that. So, and then when I had one-on-one sessions with some of the executives, there was also some of the feedback about, you know, understanding these people are like this, these people are like this, you know. So when I started out and I just realized, you know, when in Nigeria here, I'll say to my report, I need this thing by 5. And they're like, okay, good. If they're not getting it at 5, 4:30, they're like, Frances, please, can I get, you know? But I would have someone say, I'll give it to you now. But now was not really now, you know? And the times when I was going to, you know, I remembered the trainings. So I had to relax. I had to find more persuasive ways to get things done. It was a bit frustrating in the beginning, but one of the things I learned was tolerance and patience. And in Nigeria, no, we have to do it now. We said we'll do it now, we have to do it now. This thing, don't tell me it's not possible. If it's not possible, give me an alternative. Don't just say this thing cannot work. It cannot work. What is the next? You know, those kind of things are the things that would, but understanding how these people are wired and all started helping me understand how to work with them, how to manage them. So I think it's a combination of the two. I think I think we should have more opportunities for locals to lead Nigerian businesses because we understand the landscape and all. But I also understand in some instances where where global companies say we want to send someone from outside, because sometimes for those global companies, it's important that they embed the culture of the organization in there, you know. And so, for example, in Procter & Gamble, we were on first name basis, everybody. So with the vice president, hi Manoj, hi this, you know, first name basis. But there were still one or two people within the organization that the fear of God and the respect our parents put in us did not allow us to call them by their first names, you know. So even when one of our bosses were like, oh, the distributor, why can't you call her by, I said, call Mama by her first name. It's not here. You know, so you need to help them balance. But the good thing that bringing those people did was that it helped us embed the Procter & Gamble culture within the organization, so that even when the locals take over, they understand how the global organization wants an organization to be run from a people and culture point of view. So for me, I think it's a balance to understand what works. So some people choose to bring someone in first, and then after a few years, appoint a local. Some people say, let's bring the local. So we think for your friend in Ghana, I don't know what went wrong. So maybe the Nigerian CEO went in and was just like, you know, 5 minutes, you know, the Nigeria aggression. But, you know, the other thing is to own it. So when I was in South Africa, I owned it. If I was going to talk, or I mean, a couple of times I emceed some of the programs in the organization, I would be like, hello, everybody. People are answering, and I say, look, I'm Nigerian. We make noise. Well, you will hear me. We're loud. So when I say hello, you need to respond back to me. And then you see all of them now, yeah, because I owned who I am, you know. So we need to own it and be proud of it, but also be tolerant of other people and their culture, and really understand it and develop ways or strategies to manage it. So I think for that, because I don't know the background context of what that CEO was doing, I can't really say if it was a good choice or a bad choice, but I think it's just a balance of both.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now you've shared your thoughts on the issue, which is go Nigerian where you go global, or you know, take a mix. But I think you've sort of, you know, shared your thoughts, and there's a lot of learning. We've learned so much from this session, Frances, and therefore I'm just sort of wondering, as we, you know, begin to wind down, what more could you share with those listening? And even though you work for a global organization that has presence all over, I think that most of what it is that you've shared are relevant for those of us who are starting with small or medium or even large organizations, but still placed within Nigeria that desire to go out. So I just sort of wondered if you were to offer some advice for those who aspire to walk the path, or, you know, that your organization has walked in terms of its global footprint. Is there something more you would want to add to what you've shared so far?
I think for most of the other speakers have touched on this, but I would just a few things that I would probably repeat and say is, understand why you want to go global, understand why you want to expand. You know, if you're doing it because everyone is doing it, then that's a problem. You know, what's your purpose? What's the purpose of your organization? Have you really sat down to understand your purpose? And if is it just for Nigeria? Is it for Africa, or is it globally? Understand the purpose and understand why you want to go global. Then begin to look for your market. I think they've shared that. So all of that information, the political, the pestle that I talked about, the political information, market size, environmental, economic, all of this, you know, don't just walk in there. There's so many factors to consider. So like for us, for example, you need to have NAFDAC in Nigeria. And because I need to have NAFDAC registration, my global organization now needs to make specific Nigerian labels. It's the same product. I mean, it can't be Scottish whiskey if it's not made and bottled in Scotland, but the same product, when it comes, it goes into the bottle, but that label now has to have NAFDAC behind it. So it has to be printed specifically for NAFDAC, whereas all the other countries that may not require this, maybe within the European Union, get shipped the same general export bottles. So it's the same bottle, the same liquid, but I need to have NAFDAC. I need to have the pregnant woman logo. I need to have it drink responsibly, the recycling logo, all of those things that is a regulatory requirement. In South Africa, for example, it doesn't matter how your net revenue management wants to happen and how you want to make savings, it cannot be less than 75 CL. I mean, you have fractionals and, but when you start going up, it can't be a 70 CL. It has to be 75 CL. So even if the company decides to make a decision tomorrow that we're going to 60 CL, it will not work in South Africa. So you really need to understand that. The other thing is, what's my supply chain? I think supply chain is a big thing that people tend to sometimes overlook and say, we would, and it's the whole end-to-end supply chain process, from the suppliers to when you get to the consumers. What's the supply chain process? What's the order to shipment process? And this is for small businesses and co. So if you decide to get a partner or a distributor in that country that will help you, because you can't go immediately, also note that you need to ship them the products. So what's the order or to delivery timing? And if it's the order to delivery timing, how much inventory do they need to hold, so that in case any eventuality or something happens or a policy changes all of a sudden and you can't bring in products, there's still something that they can be, there's buffer stock that they can be selling for a while till all of those are sorted. So those are some of the things that sometimes people don't look at. We talked about payments. Uber, for an example, had always just done, put your cards in and, but then they came to Nigeria, realized that some of us, people like me, have trust issues, and I probably will not put all my details online. And they started giving the option of payment of cash. So how flexible can you be with some of these things that happen? I mean, that is different from what you are used to. I think the other thing is, if you're going to employ people, employment policies. In South Africa, you cannot just fire people like that. In Nigeria, I can just say, leave, you're gone. I mean, if it was my own business, but I can't do it that way in South Africa. Even your nanny, you cannot just fire your nanny. Well, I mean, at the time I was there, and I remember that when I was going to come back to Nigeria, my cleaning lady, I had to act some kind of small drama so that she'd be happy with me telling her I'm leaving and I can't offer her employment anymore. Because I didn't want someone to, take me to court and they'll tell me to pay some of my money to keep her for 6 months while she finds another job or something. So these are some of the things that you really, really need to do your homework, but it's achievable. The people that have done it, William Grant, Procter & Gamble, they don't have 10 heads. If they can't do it, we can't do it. I mean, if that's the part that you choose, I'm very, very honest with myself. And I've said, can I enter export business because somebody's entering export business? And I've asked myself, if I had to travel all the places in Nigeria to find cocoa or is this something I like to do? And I found that I didn't have any passion for it. So I won't do something because I think it's a thing. It's find your purpose, understand what you're doing, what you have to offer. And then when you go into that country, make sure you have done your homework completely. And there's nothing wrong with, finding mentors, getting advice from people who have done it. Please don't go to people who will tell you, naysayers who will tell you this won't work. Look for people who have done it, who can encourage you, who can guide you and help you to deliver it. And then find the right kind of people. Pray for the right kind of people, because people make or mar any business, and they're the most important part of any organization. So for me, I think that would be it. And then please don't spread yourself too thin. Take it one step at a time. If you can manage it, understand the systems and processes. We used to say test, learn, and then expand. Test, learn from it, and then you cannot expand because you know that, oh, I've tested with Ghana, this was what worked, then I move here from what I've learned, then I go to the next place I learn, then I expand. Versus just what we want to be for the sake of, raising shoulder. We move to 5 countries at once. Let's hope that it works out for you. It could work out for some people, but some people, it may not work out. And if it's not working, it's okay to relook the strategy and say, okay, it's not working here. What you cannot tell yourself is, for where we die here. In some cases, you can die here. For some places, you need to be truthful to yourself and say, I'm losing money every month. You're in business to make money. Apart from the other purpose that drives you, is if this is not working, how can I change it? How can I be flexible with my strategies? How can I do something differently? Nobody knows it all. So seek knowledge and grow.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Frances. Indeed, I think that's the perfect conclusion. I have thoroughly enjoyed this fireside chat with you, and I have learned a lot. I think that the audience would feel the same way. There were 2 questions on the Q&A box but you've already addressed them. One was about, why won't Nigerian companies outlive others? And you've said it. We don't have more than 10 heads. They don't have 10 heads. So really, they can do it.
Yeah.
We can do it. And,
Well, let me add something to that. Sorry, Ma. Let me just add something about why Nigerian companies sometimes don't. And this is my own personal one. I think that a lot of times we overlook systems and processes, and we overlook compliance and governance. And every organization should be founded on compliance and governance and should have those systems and processes. Sometimes we start a business and it's my company, so I can do what I want. You have to be disciplined with the work that you do. These people at some point had, supervisory council, executive board, people making sure that they couldn't make all the decisions themselves again. Sometimes there's the whole internal politics as well that just finishes up our businesses. And then you find a business that was rave of the moment after a while, So if you go to Nigerian businesses, how well have you put, systems and processes in place? How well have you put compliance and governance in place? For me, I say it's not audit. The job of audit department is not to catch people, not to catch thieves. The job of audit people is to put processes in place that prevent people from stealing. How well are we doing these things? I think some of those things are the things for Nigerian businesses that we overlook. Yeah, we just use us now. Then you say, bring 50,000 for me from that place. Before you know, your capital is going. You take your child who has no experience whatsoever. Sometimes they are brilliant, don't get me wrong, and they do a great job of it. Sometimes these people just want to be your child wants to be an actor, but you say, no, you must be in this family business. They become MD and then, So we need to run it like, I have a former distributor who fired her daughter because she was going on maternity leave and told her parents at home as normal, oh, I'd like to go to the UK to give birth. And her parents said, oh, that's great. Oh, wonderful. Go ahead. That's what you want to do. And then the girl traveled. And then they called her up on a Monday morning and said, you're not at work. And she was like, hey, but I told people I'm going to give birth. And you're like, no, you're HR. You should have did you put a formal, request on the system in the organization to say, you told us that as your parents, you didn't inform us as your employers, and all that argument, they fired their own daughter. Bye-bye. For me, that's keeping it like we run this thing differently. So it's the thing about some Nigerian businesses that Nigerian government too. Okay, let me be politically correct, but the Nigerian environment will frustrate you as well. It can be very frustrating. So companies that thrive in Nigeria, whether it's Nigerian or it's international, are great companies. I'm sure if we were in another climate, they probably would have survived. So the only difference for me is that compliance and governance and systems and processes that we need to put in place.
Good. Well, thank you. Thank you, Frances, for sharing your thoughts on this. Once again, I would just like to thank you. It's been a great conversation and it's actually been a fantastic time and a great pleasure to have this chat with you. Thanks to Boys to Men Foundation for having us both this afternoon. All the best. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Ma.
Once again, I thank all our panelists for incisive panel sessions. So many issues around going global have been interrogated, and sadly, it's almost time to close. We have come to the end of a truly engaging and informative conference. It gives me pleasure to now invite the Chairman of the Board of Trustees of Boys to Men Foundation, Mr. Ladakwa Kisoya, who is the Chief Investment Officer, Tangerine Group, to make his closing remarks and sign us off from the conference. Thank you so much to all of you for participating. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm quite delighted to be able to share my thoughts with you, having sat through the discussions this afternoon. The conversations have been quite enlightening and interesting, starting with the keynote address by Dr. Herbert Wigwe. As the conversations were ongoing, obviously I did quite a bit of reflecting. And one thing that struck me is that this thing we call globalization, I don't think we have a choice in the matter. And I do believe, as you all most likely will agree, that globalization has been with us for quite a long time. I think it's a question of whether we recognize it as such or not. In the course of the discussions, it also struck me that we tend to think about globalization in the context of business, commerce, and so on, and perhaps doing business physically or relocating physically to geographies outside our own immediate home areas. But it's dawned on me that that's not the case, actually. Globalization spans not just commerce and business, but transfer of ideas, of culture, of values, things like that. And starting from Dr. Wigwe, when he shared his foundational influence with us and mentioned Michael Milken in the 80s, it struck me that where he is today and some of the decisions he has, many of the decisions he has taken over time were driven by that foundational influence, which was also a reflection of some sort of globalization at that time, where he had access to what was going on outside Nigeria and got to know about this interesting character called Michael Milken. In the same way, in that regard, I think a lot of what we do every day in our businesses, whether or not we actually operate in outside regions, a lot of what we do is driven by this idea or this concept called globalization. Because we do borrow best practices, we borrow ideas, we borrow models, and so on. So my view is we don't have a choice in the matter. And I think whether it was said explicitly or not, I think that pretty much is the conclusion of most of the conversations we had today. There are also, so that's the message I would like to leave with us. I'd like to thank all our speakers. I'd like to thank all of you who have stayed with us throughout the course of the discussions today, in addition to those who have had to leave for various reasons. I'd like to thank Dr. Wigwe especially for the ideas he shared with us. There are very many interesting ideas and concepts that I think he imparted, starting with the importance of family. He talked about focus and determination. He talked about the importance of having a positive support group, cultivating networks and relationships, cultivating mentors who offer knowledge and wisdom. And on that particular point, it struck me again that, this is one area where the idea of globalization cannot be overemphasized. Because in my view, your networks and relationships, your mentors, do not necessarily have to be people who you have physical contact with, and may not necessarily even have to be people who may even be aware of you. In my own opinion, as Dr. Wigwe was speaking, one of his mentors, without him perhaps thinking about it that way or even saying it, was Michael Milken. So to the extent that we have access to technology that affords us the opportunity to learn what's going on elsewhere, that's globalization. And the other aspect of this thing we call globalization is recognizing it as such in its various ramifications and the decisions we elect to take to exploit the idea of globalization and the opportunities it offers us. So a very big thank you to Dr. Wigwe for the knowledge and wisdom that he shared with us, and for also inspiring deeper thoughts and conversations among us. I'd like to thank all the panelists, Mr. Deremi Atoda, Mrs. Uzo Ojinaka, Ms. Aisha Bashir, and the facilitator, Mr. Oseloka Idigbe. the discussion around the world as my village, I found quite interesting and enriching, and I thank them most deeply. I also thank the panelists on the topic going global, the real story. Ms. Frances Onwosa, that was quite a thought-provoking conversation between her and Professor Okonedo, whom I thank most deeply as well. So do enjoy the rest of the day and the week ahead. And I wish you all, those of us who are Nigerians, a happy inauguration day tomorrow, as we all look forward to a brighter future. Thank you very much.
For over 6 decades, Bank of Industry has been here, driving Nigeria's industrial development through financial and business support services to micro enterprises, small and medium enterprises, and large enterprises across Nigeria. Leveraging on strategic partnerships, we provide equipment financing, working capital, and support to enterprises in key sectors of Nigeria's economy, including youth and women-led enterprises. Whatever your business needs, starting up, expansion, diversification, modernization, or rehabilitation, we'll be here, always to support you. Bank of Industry, transforming Nigeria's industrial sector.
Now, if you are a Nigerian, I'm sure one of these things must have happened to you before, like forgetting your wallet out, or not being able to get your full change when you buy something, or you are unsure of the account you want to make payment into. Then NQR Payment is for you. NQR Payment Solution is a secure QR code-based payments and collections platform to help individuals and businesses, to help buyers and sellers to receive and also make instant payments for goods and services. Now, if you're a customer, here are 4 easy steps to pay sharp with NQR. 1. Sign into your mobile banking app, click on Payments, then select QR Payment. 3. Scan the unique QR code presented by the merchant. And 4. Confirm the beneficiary name, amount, then input your PIN, and the merchant receives its payment instantly. To use NQR for your business, contact your bank. This message is brought to you by the Bankers Club team.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me you're just hearing about the One Bank app by Sterling? Well, let me catch you up before you get cancelled. We are talking about instant account opening, no paperwork required, and no waiting in line to hear a customer service officer say, "Please wait your turn, ma." And check this, I don't have to go to the bank to get a physical debit card because I created a virtual one to help with all my online purchases. I can see I have piqued your interest. Come closer. There's more. I can apply for and get an instant loan on my One Bank app via Spectre. I can also get up-to-date news on what's going on around me. What are you waiting for? Head over to your app store right now and get the One Bank app this minute. Do it now. Register. Open an account.
Falcon Corporation Limited, a leading wholly indigenous midstream and downstream natural gas distribution, LPG trading and storage company with an unwavering commitment to quality, safety and operational excellence. A world-class sustainable institution and brand with excellent standards of governance, making tangible positive impact on our communities over decades. A strategic partner of choice, delivering value to Nigeria's domestic gas industry since 1994. A visionary organization with bold aspirations for the energy future of Africa. Falcon Corporation. Think gas. Think Falcon.
Some dreams are big. Some dreams are small. Some dream to go from place to place. Dreams of love and ever after. Dreams and sacrifices that builds the future. Whatever the dream or step or journey, you can do more with a partner that cares about your dreams. Access, more than banking.
Brother Jumble, why you dey fumble? You no need to dey suffer to send money, oh. Carry phone, make you dial the number 894. Make you know they wait. 894. No need to dey stand for line. 894. It is safe and secure. 894 for me. 894 for you. 894 for there's a number that could change your whole world. 894. It no matter if you don't get data. 894. Just pick your phone and dial the number. 894 for me. 894 for you. 894 for Niger.
Dial *894# to get started.
You first bank.
Shopping online is so easy, but shipping those items to your doorstep can be a hassle. This is why I strongly recommend overseas shipping by GIG Logistics. With the GIG Go app by GIG Logistics, you can ship items from the UK and US to Nigeria and Ghana with ease. The best part, it only takes a few seconds. Let me show you how. Log into the GIG Go app, select overseas shipping, then click send to Nigeria. Select UK or US and copy the shipping address for later. Visit the stores you want to shop from. At the checkout stage, paste the shipping address you copied earlier and complete your transaction. Return to the GIG Go app to create your shipment. Fill your items and delivery details. Upload your means of identification and you're done. Then relax. Your items will be delivered to you in a few days. It's that easy. You should try it today.
Of the game is why I love basketball. It's fun, fast paced, and here at PA, I get to play my guys after class. So it's a vibe.
Music makes me happy, and my dreams of making music are still alive here in PAU. With these talented friends of mine, we work together in our free time to make magic. Tracks ready, guys.
I'm a businesswoman. I own 2 successful businesses, and here at PAU, the entrepreneurship program has helped strengthen my platform. In the past year, I've generated so much revenue while doing the thing I love. Amazing, right?
The title advice and drop this down so you can start filling that. Right, good job, Samuel. I've always wanted to be an engineer. Right from when I was young, I've been building things for fun. And now that I'm old, I would love to create solutions that work. That is why I love the top-notch facilities here at PAU. The lecturers and supervisors are amazing, and these light minds challenge me every day.
When it comes to coding, I love the constant challenge to solve problems. That feeling of accomplishment that comes with solving an error never gets old. My course helps me to develop my skills, and in the process, I get to have so much fun.
Channel your energy, pain, sadness, and cuts. Film is my passion. It's how I get to express myself and share my mind with others. I live for the thrill of being able to bring my visions to life. And here at PAU, I'm doing just that. Okay, let's take Team 4 again.
What I've ever on the net, you the scare who? Hey, boss man, me, I know they fear you. You they use your boy hustle for the tweets. I can't wait till I buck you when you.
Fashion and influencing are expressions of who I am as a person. Here at PAU, I get to dress in ways that make me confident and create loads of fun content. Okay, you guys, let's take another one.
Force fields, collision, cloth modifier. This is all you need to know to learn physics in Blender. Okay? I'm a 3D artist. I live and breathe art, and my love for art actually stayed alive here in PAU. Solo here inspires me to actually work on my skills. Through this, we teach and challenge each other every day. Let's continue.
Me, I don't get beef with nobody. I put my mind on my money. Bad energy far from me. Yeah.
Oh my god, me and dance are like this. I love being able to express myself and entertain others, and I can do that here at the Euphoria Dance Floor. Okay guys, let's continue.
And that, my friends, is why the economy is declining. I'm a public speaker and I love to inspire and educate through my speeches. Here at PAU, the presentation tasks have helped me to be more confident, and I can see myself on global stages defending great causes.
This is our community,
where we get to live our dreams,
where we get to imagine
and express freely,
where we get to connect with ourselves,
with our friends, and do the things we love,
where we get to train,
to work hard, to hustle,
to grow,
to become leaders,
stars.
This is us.
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 This is us. This is us.
Glenfiddich means Valley of the Deer. And just as a stag loses its antlers each year, we believe in letting down our guard and seeking out uncertainty to embrace the unknown. It's how we go forward, how we grow stronger, and how we make our whiskey. Glenfiddich, where next?